Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Nightmare Narratives. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious. Where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Franklin Murphy. I've been a park ranger at Blackwater Ridge for nearly 3 years now, and I've always found a strange peace in these woods. This morning started like any other. The dawn mist rising off the lake, birds singing in. The trees, beautiful really, but something felt off today. The bird songs tasted like copper in my mouth. I know that sounds crazy. How can you taste a sound? But I did. And the colors around me, the green of the pines, the blue of the sky, they seemed to scream just below what I could properly hear. I tried to shake it off. This is my happy place after all. My grandfather used to tell stories about this land, though never in much detail. Just that our family had history here. I never knew the half of it. As I walked my usual patrol route, time seemed to stutter, like skipping frames in an old movie. 1 second I was alone in the forest. The next I saw flashes of people, Cherokee families running through the trees, terror on their faces. Then they were gone, and I was alone again. It's October 1967, but the shadows don't seem to know that. They move like they're still chasing those people I saw, like echo shadows from 1838. I've studied enough local history to know what happened back then. The Cherokee removal, the Trail of Tears. But I never connected my family to it. The lake is the strangest thing of all. I swear the shoreline has changed since yesterday. New paths have appeared, leading to spots I've never seen before. Places where the ground is darker, where the air feels heavier. Execution sites, my mind whispers, though I don't know how I know that. A loon called across the water, a normal sound I've heard 100 times before. But this time, I tasted blood in my mouth. My own blood. I checked my tongue. I hadn't bitten it. The taste was just there. I stopped to catch my breath, leaning against a tree, and noticed something I'd never seen before. The trees weren't random. They grew in patterns, forming shapes, words, Cherokee words. I can't read Cherokee, have never studied it, but somehow I knew they spelled vengeance. The water from the stream was flowing uphill toward a cluster of stones I now recognized as ancient graves. That's not possible. Water doesn't do that. But I was watching it happen. My chest suddenly felt heavy. At first, I thought it was another panic attack. I've had them since Vietnam. But no, it was the weight of my medals beneath my uniform. They felt like they weighed 50 pounds each, pulling me down, like they were filled with all the horrible things my family had done here, things I didn't even know about yet. I need to keep walking. I need to understand what's happening to me, why I was drawn here today, why the forest seems to be watching me with hungry eyes. I never really thought much about my family history until now. I'm 42 years old, and I've been more focused on forgetting my own past than learning about my ancestors. But something is pulling those threads together today, like the universe wants me to see the whole ugly picture. I've had these dreams my whole life, dreams where I'm drowning. The water fills my lungs, and I can't breathe, can't scream. The weird thing is, I've never almost drowned. I'm actually a pretty good swimmer. But these dreams feel so real, like memories instead of nightmares. Vietnam was bad enough. Bad. I came back with medals I didn't want, and memories I can't shake. Guys who didn't make it home. Choices I made that I can't take back. But now it feels like there's another layer of guilt piling on top. Something older. Something in my blood. The scar from my Purple Heart started bleeding this morning. No reason, no injury, just opened up like a fresh wound. When I wiped away the blood, I noticed it had made a pattern on my sleeve, shapes that looked like Cherokee symbols. I don't even know how I recognize them. You feeling okay, Frank? Tommy Rodriguez asked, appearing beside me on the trail. Tommy was with me in Nam. At least that's what I remember. But lately, I've been wondering about him. None of the other vets remember a Tommy Rodriguez in our unit. I can't find his name in any records. I reached into my pocket and felt my grandfather's compass. He called it his lucky charm, said it got him through 2 wars. I never questioned where he got it. Now I looked at it with new eyes, the intricate carvings around the edge, the strange way the needle never quite points north. This wasn't army issue. This was Cherokee made, stolen from someone before they died. You're looking at me funny. Frank, Tommy said. I blinked, and for a second I wasn't wearing my ranger uniform anymore. I was in an old militia outfit, a rifle in my hands, standing over a Cherokee family. I shook my head hard, and I was back in 1967. I don't know what's real anymore, I told Tommy. I keep seeing things, feeling things, war memories all mixed up with something else, something older. Maybe you're finally remembering, Tommy said quietly. The wind picked up, whistling through the trees. But it wasn't just wind. There were words in it, songs. Death songs that I somehow knew, somehow tasted. They filled me with a terror that settled deep in my bones. I think I'm here for a reason, I said. I think something's been waiting for me. The words came out of my mouth, and I knew they were true. I'd been drawn to this ranger job, to this forest, to this day, not by chance, by something that had been patient for a very long time. Tommy and I walked deeper into the woods, to places I'd never patrolled before. The trees grew thicker here, blocking out the sun. I stumbled over something half buried in the dirt and bent down to look. It was a Cherokee arrowhead, perfectly preserved like it had been made yesterday. When I picked it up, it crumbled between my fingers, turning to dust. That's weird, I said, but Tommy just gave me a look. Then I noticed the silence. Not just quiet, but a complete absence of sound that pressed against my ears until it felt like screaming. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of our footsteps. Just nothing. I rounded a bend in the trail and stopped dead. There, in a small clearing, lay 3 bodies. A man, a woman, and a small child. They were wearing old-fashioned clothes, the kind you'd see in history books about the 1830s, Cherokee clothes. Their bodies looked fresh, like they'd just died. But that was impossible. Do you smell that? I asked Tommy, my voice shaking. The air reeked of lake water and something else. The smell of people fighting for their last breath, the smell of drowning. I reached for my radio to call for help, but when I opened my pack to get it, my hands found something else instead. An old militia canteen, a leather ammunition pouch, things my grandfather might have carried, things I definitely hadn't packed this morning. Finally finding my radio, I turned it on, but instead of the usual static and chatter, it played what sounded like chanting, low voices singing in Cherokee, mourning songs that made my skin crawl. Let's get back to the station, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Something's not right here. I turned to head back the way we came, but the trail had changed. Instead of leading back to the ranger station, it curved toward the lake, toward a part of the shore I'd never seen before. The ground there was dark with old bloodstains that couldn't possibly still be visible after more than 100 years. Grandfather, please, I heard myself say, but the words weren't in English. They were Cherokee words, begging for mercy. Words I'd never learned, but somehow knew. You've been here before, Frank, Tommy said quietly. Not in this life, but in the blood that runs through you. You know what happened here. I stared at him. How would you know that? How would you know anything about my family? Tommy just pointed to my hands. I looked down and saw my fingers moving on their own, curling like they were wrapping around someone's throat, squeezing. I couldn't stop them. What's happening to me? I whispered, but I was starting to understand. This wasn't just a haunted place. It was haunted by what my family had done here, and somehow it had been waiting for me to return. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows through the trees. That's when I saw it, standing at the edge of the clearing. At first, I thought it was a man, maybe another hiker who'd gotten lost. But as it stepped forward, I felt my blood turn cold. It looked like my grandfather from the old photos. Same tall build, same square jaw. But parts of its body were wrong. Bones stuck out from its skin in places, not like injuries, but like they were meant to be there. Cherokee bones. And its face. It was like looking in a mirror, but twisted. My face, but with Cherokee features blended in, like two photographs pressed together. "Do you see that?" I asked Tommy, my voice barely a whisper. "I see it," he said. "It's been waiting for you." The thing wore a mix of militia uniform and Cherokee clothes. Hanging from its belt were items I recognized: my grandfather's pocket watch, a knife I'd seen in our family home growing up, Cherokee beads and symbols. Then it spoke, and the voice was my grandfather's, the voice I barely remembered from early childhood. They begged me not to, it said, the words echoing strangely. The children cried for their mothers as I held them under the water. Your great-grandfather laughed as he did it. Your blood is soaked in their blood, Franklin Murphy. I tried to back away, but my feet wouldn't move. The thing reached out and touched my forehead with one cold finger, and suddenly I wasn't me anymore. I was a young Cherokee woman, being dragged from my home by men in militia uniforms. I was a child watching my father shot for trying to protect our land. I was an elder drowning in this very lake while men who looked like me watched and laughed. I lived and died dozens of deaths, each one at the hands of men from my family line. Men who shared my blood, my name, my face. When I came back to myself, I was on my knees, sobbing. My rifle had fallen beside me, but when I reached for it, it changed shape in my hand, becoming a Cherokee war club. When I tried to lift it against the creature, my arms wouldn't obey. "Your weapons cannot harm me," the thing said. "I am made from what your family destroyed. I am what your guilt has created." It reached into my chest, not physically, but somehow worse, and pulled out memories I didn't know I had. My grandfather teaching me to hunt, but hiding the truth of what he'd done on this land. My father drinking himself to sleep to escape the nightmares he never explained to me. The real reason I'd joined the army, trying to balance some cosmic scale I didn't understand. Behind the creature, shapes began to form. Cherokee people, dozens of them, their clothes soaked with lake water, their eyes fixed on me. They circled around us, watching, waiting. "You have a choice," the thing said. "Continue the cycle your family began, or break it forever." It pointed to Tommy, who stood absolutely still, watching me with sad eyes. "Kill him, the last descendant of those your family murdered, and you go free. Refuse, and take his place." In our judgment, I looked at Tommy, really looked at him for the first time. Had he always been Cherokee? Had I just never noticed, or never wanted to notice? "He's not real," the thing said, reading my thoughts. "Or perhaps he's more real than you know. Choose, Franklin Murphy. Choose now." The forest around us shifted and changed. One moment we were in 1967, the next it was 1838, and I stood on a battlefield where Cherokee people fled from men wearing my face. Time itself was breaking down, and I had to decide which side of history I belonged on. "I won't do it," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "I won't hurt Tommy." The thing that wore my grandfather's face smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Then you've chosen to face judgment yourself." The world settled around us, time finding its place again. We stood at the edge of the lake now, at a spot I somehow knew was special, sacred, cursed. This was where it happened, where my grandfather had held down a Cherokee chief as the water filled his lungs. You can't change what your family did, the creature said, but you can accept it, own it. I felt a sharp pain in my arm and looked down to see my skin splitting open, not bleeding, but making way for something. A small piece of bone pushed. Its way out, not mine, but older, much older. The creature was taking parts of me, incorporating them into itself. Stop, I shouted, but I knew it wouldn't. This was justice, in its own terrible way. Tommy stepped forward, standing between me and the creature. He's not them, he said. He never held a Cherokee child underwater. He never stole our land. His only crime is being born to their line. The creature tilted its head. And is that not enough? The sins of the father. No, Tommy said firmly, but he can make it right. That's when I finally understood who Tommy really was. Not just a figment of my war-damaged mind. Not just a fellow soldier. He was the descendant of the very chief my grandfather had murdered here. He'd been guiding me to this moment my whole life, waiting for me to see the truth. What do I need to do? I asked, willing to do anything to stop this cycle of pain. Tommy pointed to the lake. You know, I did. I had to accept the same fate my family had forced on so many others. I had to walk into those waters and not come back out. The Cherokee spirits watched in silence as I took off my ranger jacket and boots. The creature that wore my grandfather's face looked surprised, then wary. You would die for sins you didn't commit, it asked. I would die to end what my family started, I answered. I waded into the cold water. It felt right somehow, like coming home to a place I'd always feared. The water reached my waist, then my chest. Wait, Tommy called out. There's another way. I turned back, water up to my neck now. You can live, he said, but you must protect what your family tried to destroy. Become the guardian of this place, of our people's memory. Never let anyone forget what happened here. The spirits murmured among themselves. The creature made of bones and guilt looked at Tommy, then at me. Slowly, it nodded. A life for many lives, it said. A fair trade. I felt something burning on my skin, not painful but intense. Looking down, I saw Cherokee symbols appearing on my arms, my chest, marking me. Changing. Me. As I walked back to shore, the creature began to come apart, pieces of bone and memory falling away until only dust remained. The spirits faded too, all except Tommy. You'll see them now, he said. Everywhere. You'll hear their stories. You'll tell them to others. That's your purpose now. I nodded, understanding that I would never be the same. I would never be fully human again, but something in between. Part ranger, part guardian, part memory keeper. Will you stay? I asked. Tommy, he smiled sadly. I've been here all along. You just couldn't see me before. As dawn broke over Blackwater Ridge, I walked back toward the ranger station, seeing the world with new eyes. Cherokee spirits walked beside me, through me, their stories now part of mine to tell. Sometimes visitors come to Blackwater Ridge, hikers, campers, history buffs. I tell them the stories of this place, all the stories, even the ugly ones. Especially the ugly ones. And sometimes I ask them about their own families, their own histories. The guilt they might be carrying without even knowing it. After all, we all have ghosts, we all have debts, and sometimes the only way forward is to look back and face what came before us. My name is Franklin Murphy. I used to be just a park ranger. Now I'm something else, something more. A bridge between worlds, between times, between the living and those who deserve to be remembered. And if you ever visit Blackwater Ridge, I'll be waiting to ask you, what guilt have your ancestors given form, and what will you do to make it right? My name is Patricia Reeves. I'm a forest ranger at Wendigo Lake, and I'm starting to think something is very wrong with this place. It's February 1978, and the lake looks peaceful under all this snow. beautiful even. But sometimes, when the light hits just right, the ice forms these shapes that look like little hands reaching up from under the surface. I try not to stare at them too long. The wind here plays tricks on you. Yesterday I swear I heard children laughing. I followed the sound deeper into the trees but found nothing. Then the laughter turned to crying, and then to screaming, and I ran back to my cabin with my hands over my ears. Something about this place makes me feel like I'm being watched, hunted even, but not by anything with claws or teeth. It's worse than that. It feels like this place knows things about me, things I've tried to forget. The strangest part is how sometimes this freezing wilderness feels warm, almost comforting, like when you tuck a child into bed. I find myself relaxing into that feeling before I remember that comfort in this kind of cold is usually the last thing people feel before they freeze to death. Time doesn't work right here. It's the dead of winter, but twice now I've rounded a corner and seen summer, green leaves, warm sunshine, and children playing by the lake. Children who vanish when I blink. This morning, I tasted something strange. In the snow. It tasted like Tommy's last breakfast. Pancakes with too much syrup, just how he liked them. But that's impossible. How can snow taste like memories? The ice on the lake has been cracking in weird patterns. I know this sounds crazy, but yesterday it spelled out "mommy" in what looked like a child's handwriting. I took a picture, but when I developed it, the cracks just looked like normal ice breaks. The animals are acting strange too. A wolf watched me from the tree line last night, and when our eyes met, I saw Tommy's face reflected in them. The same thing happened with a raven this morning, and even with a spider in my cabin. Every creature here wears my son's face. There's a blizzard coming in. The radio warned all rangers to stay in their shelters, but when I looked at the weather map, the storm cloud was shaped exactly like Tommy's silhouette. Nobody else seemed to notice. Sometimes I hear songs coming from the empty forest, lullabies I used to sing to Tommy when he was little. But I never sang them out loud here. How could the forest know them? This morning, I found footprints in the snow outside my cabin, small ones like a child's. They led into the woods toward the deepest part of the lake. Something inside me wants to follow them so badly it hurts, like I'm being pulled by an invisible string. I'm afraid of where they might lead, but I'm more afraid of what happens if I don't follow. Jake says I should stay in the cabin. Jake is the other ranger stationed here. He's a good guy, keeps an eye on me, but sometimes when he turns away, he looks different, younger. Like Tommy would have looked if he'd gotten the chance to grow up. I should explain about Tommy, but I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure I know the truth myself anymore. I should tell you about myself. I'm 35 years old. I became a forest ranger after what happened with Tommy. Being alone in the woods seemed safer than being around people and their questions. Tommy was my son. He was 7 years old, with brown hair that never stayed combed, and a gap between his front teeth that showed when he smiled. And he smiled a lot, but sometimes when I try to remember Tommy's face, it gets blurry. Sometimes I remember him alive and laughing. Sometimes I see him still and quiet, and sometimes this scares me the most. I can't remember if he was ever real at all. 3 years ago, there was a car accident. I know that much is true because I still have the scars on my arms from the broken glass. Tommy was with me. We were driving home from his soccer game in a storm, but there are 3 hours missing from my memory that night. I remember getting in the car with Tommy. I remember him being excited about scoring his first goal. Then, nothing. Until I woke up in the hospital, and they told me Tommy was gone. I take pills every day, little white ones that are supposed to help with the sadness, and blue ones that stop the bad dreams. I don't remember who prescribed them. The bottle just says, take as needed for sleep. Jake has been a good friend through all this. He's the senior ranger here at Wendigo Lake. This morning he brought me coffee and told me stories about the animals he's tracked. But something was off. When I first saw him, he looked about my age. By the time he left, he looked younger, maybe 18 or 19. Just for a second, he looked exactly like Tommy might have looked if he'd gotten to grow up. I keep Tommy's toy fire truck with me all the time. It's red with a little ladder on the side. He loved that truck, but sometimes when I pull it out of my pocket, it feels wet. Once I looked down and it wasn't a toy at all, but a real tiny fire truck with dark red spots on the bumper that looked like blood. I blinked and it was just a toy again. Everyone says I'm good at my job. I can read weather patterns, track animals, and find lost hikers better than rangers who've been here twice as long. But lately, I keep doing things that don't make sense. Yesterday I walked out into a snowstorm without my coat. Last week I left all my food outside where animals could get it. It's like part of me wants to put myself in danger. Time keeps slipping. Sometimes I wake up and think I need to get Tommy ready for school. I'll make his favorite breakfast and call his name before I remember. Other times, I'm sure he's just at a friend's house and will be home soon. Last night, I caught myself setting the table for 2 people. I made 2 cups of hot chocolate. I laid out 2 sleeping bags by the fireplace. When I was lying in mine, I swear I could hear 2 heartbeats in the cabin, mine and a smaller, faster one. The hospital gave me this bracelet when they released me. I'm supposed to wear it all the time. It has my name and a number to call if I'm found confused. But I can't remember why they thought I needed it. What happened in that hospital after the accident? Why are there gaps in my memory? Jake told me something about this lake yesterday, something I can't stop thinking about. He said the local Ojibwe people called it the place of hungry winter. Long ago, families came here to fish, but one year the fish vanished and the winter was cruel. People got trapped by snow. They ran out of food. Parents had to make terrible choices to survive. I asked Jake how he knew this story. He looked at me strangely and said, "You told it to me, Patricia. Don't you remember?" But I don't remember. Just like I don't remember if I was driving the car the night Tommy died. This morning, I found something strange while checking the trails near the lake. In a small clearing, the snow had melted in a pattern, not random patches, but words. Clear as day, it spelled out, "I forgive you, Mommy." The bare ground underneath was dry, like the snow had been gone for days, but I'd walked this same path yesterday and it was all covered. I ran back to get my camera, but when I returned, the snow was even again. No message, no melted patches, just smooth white, like nothing had been there at all. Jake explained more about the history of this place today. He said the Ojibwe called it a hunger site. During that terrible winter long ago, parents made an awful choice. When food ran out completely, some of them ate their own children, so the rest of the family could survive. How could anyone do that? I asked him. Jake looked at me with eyes that seemed much older than his face. Guilt changes people, Patricia. It eats them from the inside, just like hunger. I keep finding dead animals in the woods, not just dead, but started on. Like something began to eat them and then stopped. A rabbit yesterday, half consumed and then abandoned in the snow. A fox this morning, with just a few bites taken. Like whatever was eating them suddenly felt too guilty to continue. Jake's voice has been changing. We'll be talking normally, and mid-sentence, his voice will shift. Get higher, younger. He'll say something like, "We should check the North Trail." But the last few words sound exactly like Tommy used to sound. Then Jake will clear his throat and his normal voice comes back. I found something impossible in the snow today. Tommy's blue backpack with the rocket ship patch I sewed on myself. It was half buried in a snowdrift near the edge of the lake. The snow there fell 3 weeks ago, according to our weather logs. Tommy died 3 years ago. How could his backpack be here? I keep the radio on in my cabin all the time now. It helps me feel less alone. But this morning, the news report talked about a car accident on Highway 18. A woman and her young son. They described the car, a blue station wagon. That was my car. They were describing my accident with Tommy, but then they gave the date as February 12th, 1978. That's tomorrow. Every sound in the forest makes me jump now. A branch breaking sounds like a child calling for help. Wind whistling through rocks sounds like crying. I find myself running toward these sounds before I can even think, like my body is programmed to rescue a child in trouble. Last night, something strange happened to me physically. I woke up with my shirt wet. At first, I thought I'd spilled water, but it was coming from me, milk. My breasts were leaking milk like they did when Tommy was a baby, but that was 8 years ago. How is this possible? The trees around my cabin have changed. I know how. Crazy this sounds, but when I woke up this morning and looked out the window, they weren't in the same places they were yesterday. They had shifted positions, arranged themselves into the shape of a playground, a swing set, a slide, a merry-go-round, all made of trees that shouldn't be able to move. I've been having flashbacks to the accident. They come without warning. I'll be making coffee or checking equipment, and suddenly I'm back in the car with Tommy, rain pounding on the windshield, headlights coming toward us, Tommy saying, "Mommy, you're going too fast." But that's not how I remember it happening. In my memory, I wasn't driving. Tommy's father was driving. He had picked Tommy up from the soccer game because I had to work. Late, but in these new flashbacks, I'm behind the wheel. My hands are on the steering wheel. Tommy is scared. He's telling me to slow down. I found Jake looking through my things this morning. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "Looking for my fire truck." Jake doesn't have a fire truck. Tommy had a fire truck. I called the ranger station today to ask when Jake's shift started. The woman on the radio sounded confused. "There's no Jake Morrison stationed at Wendigo Lake," she said. "You're the only ranger out there right now, Patricia. Has been for weeks. I'm starting to think I might not be alone here after all. But not in the way I thought. I saw Tommy last night. Not in a dream. Not a memory. He was standing at the edge of the frozen lake, looking exactly as he did the last time I saw him. His blue jacket was torn. There was blood on his face. His left arm hung at a strange angle. But he was smiling. "Mommy," he called. "I'm cold. Can I come home now?" I ran toward him, but the closer I got, the more wrong he looked. His skin was too pale, almost blue. His eyes were black all the way through, no whites at all, and he was so thin, like someone who hasn't eaten in years. When I was almost close enough to touch him, he changed. For just a second, he looked taller, older, like a teenager. Then he was my little boy again, but parts of him seemed to be rotting, then perfect again, like he couldn't decide what to be. "Tommy?" I whispered. "Is it really you?" He tilted his head to one side, the way he used to when he was thinking hard about something. "I'm hungry, Mommy," he said. "I've been hungry for so long." I reached out to touch his face, but he stepped back. "Not yet," he said. "I'm not strong enough yet. You need to feel worse first." "Feel worse? The more you blame yourself, the stronger I get," he explained, like he was telling me about a school project. "Your guilt feeds me, and I'm so hungry." I fell to my knees in the snow. "I'm sorry, Tommy. The accident. It was my fault, wasn't it? I was driving too fast." Tommy's smile got wider. Too wide for a normal face. I could see too many teeth. "That's good, Mommy. Keep remembering. Keep blaming yourself." He looked stronger already, more solid. "I can come back for real," he said. "I can be your little boy again, forever. But I need your help." "Anything," I told him. "I'll do anything." His eyes glittered in the moonlight. "There are other families that come to this lake in the summer, other children. If you help me get to them, I can be yours again." A cold feeling spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the winter air. "You want me to hurt other children?" Tommy shook his head. "Not hurt, feed. I'm so hungry, Mummy, and only children will make me better." I backed away from him. "No, this isn't real. You're not Tommy." He followed me. his feet not making any prints in the snow. "Of course I am. Who else would I be?" But as he said it, his face changed again. Older, younger, rotting, perfect. Like he was flipping through different versions of himself. "You're alone out here, Patricia," he said. And his voice wasn't Tommy's anymore. It was Jake's voice. "You've been alone for days. There is no Jake Morrison. There's just you and me and your guilt. Jake is real," I insisted. "I've talked to him, had coffee with him." "Look at your hand." The thing that wasn't Tommy said. I looked down. I was holding 2 mugs of coffee, both mine. One half empty, one still full. "You've been talking to yourself," he said. "Setting a place for me at the table, making my bed, talking to me when I'm not there, because you can't accept what you did." "What did I do?" I whispered. Tommy, or whatever he was, came closer. "You know what you did. You were angry. Driving. Too fast in the rain, not paying attention. You killed me, Mommy." The world seemed to tilt under my feet. Memories rushed back. Fighting with Tommy's father on the phone while driving, Tommy crying in the back seat, the headlights coming toward us, the sound of breaking glass. "But I can come back," he said softly. "There's a way. The Ojibwe knew it. When hunger gets bad enough, there are ways to keep your children with you forever." He held out his small hand, his perfect, undamaged hand. "You just have to take a little piece of them inside you, keep them safe, and I can show you how." I understood what he was suggesting, and it made me sick. The Wendigo, the hungry spirit the Ojibwe feared, the monster born when people ate what they shouldn't. "This has happened before, hasn't it?" I asked. "Other parents, other children. This is a cycle." Tommy nodded, looking pleased. "You're smart, Mommy." "Yes. Every few years, a parent who's lost a child comes here. The guilt calls to us, and they make a choice." "What choice?" "Become like me," he said. "Keep your child with you forever by feeding the hunger, or let go completely." I realized with a horrible certainty that I'd had this conversation before, maybe many times, each time ending the same way. "How many times have I been here talking to you like this?" I asked. Tommy's smile was terrible now, stretching far beyond the corners of his mouth. "Every night since you arrived," he said. "And every night you make the same choice." "We need to go somewhere special," Tommy said, holding out his small hand to me. "The place where it all happened." I knew where he meant without him saying it. The curve in the road just outside of town, where the guardrail was still bent from our car, crashing through it 3 years ago. "Why there?" I asked, though I already knew. "Because that's where the choice has to be made," he said. His voice kept shifting between Tommy's and something older, hungrier, where things end or begin again. I followed him through the dark forest. The snow had stopped falling, and the moon lit our way with a pale blue light. Tommy didn't leave footprints. I did. When we reached the road, which shouldn't have been possible because the lake is miles from any highway, I recognized it immediately. The sharp curve, the drop-off beyond the guardrail, the tree with scars on its trunk where our car had hit. Tommy stood at the exact spot where the car had gone through the rail. "It's time to choose, Mommy," he said. "You can be with me forever. All you have to do is say yes, and when the summer comes, help me find other children to feed on. Or you can let me go, once and for all." "If I say yes," I asked, "will you really be Tommy again?" My Tommy. For just a moment, his face became completely normal. My beautiful boy, with his gap-toothed smile and kind eyes. "Parts of me," he admitted. "The hungry parts, the angry parts, the parts that blame you, not the parts that loved you or forgave." "You," I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. "You're not Tommy. You're what my guilt created, a monster wearing my son's face." He hissed, his face twisting into something terrible. "I'm all you have left of him. Don't you want to keep me? Don't you love your son?" The question hit me like A physical blow. Of course I love Tommy, more than anything. That's why I couldn't let this thing use his memory this way. I do love him, I said. That's why I have to let him go. Tommy, the thing that wasn't Tommy, screamed. The sound was like metal tearing, like winter wind, like a child in pain. It made me want to cover my ears and run. You can't, he shrieked. You promised to always protect me. I'm protecting what's left of you now, I said. Your memory, the real you. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the toy fire truck. It felt warm in my hand, like it had been sitting in the sun instead of in my cold pocket. Goodbye, Tommy. I whispered, I love you, I'm sorry, and I forgive myself. I threw the fire truck over the guardrail into the darkness beyond. Tommy lunged for it with a howl, but he was too late. As the toy disappeared into the shadows, Tommy began to fade. Too, first becoming transparent, then breaking apart like smoke in the wind. His final words hung in the air. I'll be waiting when your guilt comes back. Then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, looking at the empty space where he had been. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something like peace. Then I heard a voice behind me. Patricia, can you hear me? I turned around. The road was gone. The forest was gone. I was lying in a bed with white sheets. A man in a white coat was looking down at me with concern. Patricia, he said again. Do you know where you are? I looked around the room. Hospital, the clean antiseptic smell, the beeping machines, the IV in my arm. Am I back in the hospital after the accident? The doctor, his name tag said Dr. Morrison, shook his head gently. You've been here for 3 years, Patricia, ever since the accident. You've been in and out of awareness, but mostly somewhere else. I looked down at my wrist. The hospital bracelet was there, but it didn't say what I thought it did. It read, Reeves, Patricia, long-term psychiatric care. I don't understand, I said. Wendigo Lake, being a forest ranger, Jake. Jake was my son, Dr. Morrison said quietly. He was driving the other car that night, the one that hit you and Tommy. He survived, but he's been visiting you, trying to make amends. You sometimes seem to recognize him. Memories began to slot into place. Not forest ranger training, but therapy sessions. Not a cabin in the woods, but a hospital room that I sometimes decorated with pictures of trees. Not Jake the ranger, but Jake the guilty teenager who came to read to me and bring me coffee. The lake? The Wendigo? Your mind created a place where Tommy was still with you in some form, Dr. Morrison explained, where your guilt and his absence could make sense. We've been trying to help you find your way back. I looked at my hands. They were thin and pale. There were scars I didn't remember, restraint marks. Have I been violent? Dr. Morrison hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes, mostly to yourself. You would talk about being hungry, about feeding something inside you. We had to sedate you several times when you tried to hurt yourself. I remembered the half-eaten animals in the forest, the hunger that was never satisfied. Last night was different, Dr. Morrison continued. You were sleepwalking. We found you outside in the snow. You were saying goodbye to Tommy over and over. When we brought you back, your fever broke. You've been more lucid since then than at any time in the past 3 years. I felt tears running down my face. So it was all in my head. Tommy is really gone? Tommy is gone, he confirmed gently. But the monster you created from your guilt, that can be gone too, if you let it. I nodded slowly, understanding now. The choice at the guardrail hadn't been a dream or hallucination. It had been real in the way that mattered most. I had chosen to let go. What happens now? I asked. That's up to you, Dr. Morrison said. There's a long road ahead. Recovery, therapy, learning to live with what happened without letting it consume you. but I think you've taken the first step." He left me alone with my thoughts. Through the window, I could see snow falling softly on the hospital grounds. For a moment, I thought I heard a child's laughter carried on the wind. But this time, it didn't sound angry or hungry or accusing. It sounded like Tommy saying goodbye. I still don't know if Wendigo Lake was real or just something my broken mind created. Maybe there really are hungry spirits born from guilt and loss. Maybe they do wear the faces of the children we couldn't save. Or maybe the monsters are just the parts of ourselves we can't face. The guilt, the blame, the what-ifs that eat us alive if we let them. All I know is that wherever you are, right now reading this, I hope you'll do something for me. If you have children, go check on them. Make sure they're safe. Hold them a little tighter tonight. And if you've lost someone like I lost Tommy, remember that guilt is the real monster. Don't feed it. Don't let it wear your loved one's face. Let them go. It's the only way either of you will find peace. My name is Miguel Santos. I've been a park ranger at Big Bend for almost 5 years now, but something about this morning feels different. The sunrise paints the desert in gold and orange, beautiful as always. But today I noticed something in the shadows, shapes on the rock face that look like Comanche drawings. I've passed this spot hundreds of times, but I've never seen these markings before. They seem to be warning of something dangerous. The wind picks up, and the strangest thing happens. The sand seems to sing, not like normal wind sounds, but actual songs, sad ones that make my skin prickle. They sound like death songs, though I have no idea how I know that or what Comanche death songs even sound like. Something pulls me deeper into the canyon. It's like a voice calling from inside my bones, telling me I belong here, which is weird because I've never felt connected to this specific place before. Later, Robert would tell me that my family actually fled this area generations ago. I had no idea. As I walk, something even stranger happens. It's definitely October 1983. I check my watch and the date on my notebook, but I keep seeing flashes of something else. Comanche families hiding behind the same rocks I'm walking past. A woman clutching a baby to her chest, a man painting his face for battle. They appear for just seconds, then vanish when I blink or turn my head. Am I going crazy? I reach out to touch a large boulder, and suddenly my mind fills with screaming. I see soldiers on horseback firing into crowds of Comanche people, blood splashing across rocks. I pull my hand back like I've been burned, but the images keep coming. It's like the rocks themselves remember what happened here, and they're showing me. The whole desert feels alive today, conscious somehow. Everywhere I look, I see glimpses of the past. Ghostly images of violence and death playing out against the landscape. Not like a movie, more like memories that weren't mine until now. I stop at a small spring to fill my canteen, but when I take a sip, I gag. The water tastes like iron, like blood. I spit it out, staring at the clear liquid in confusion. What is happening to me? I notice something else too. There are no animals near certain spots, no birds flying overhead, no lizards sunning themselves on particular rocks. It's like they know to avoid those places, like they remember something terrible happened there. The air feels heavy, thick in my lungs. I keep having to take deep breaths, like there's not enough oxygen. Robert says it's the weight of unresolved grief pressing down, all the sorrow that was never properly mourned. And strangest of all, I keep feeling pulled towards specific spots in the desert, one rocky outcropping, a particular bend in the dry riverbed, a circle of stones half buried in sand. I have no idea why these places call to me, but I can't resist moving toward them. Later I would learn these were the exact spots where my ancestors died, their blood soaking into the same ground I now walk on as a park ranger, completely unaware of my connection to this land. I suppose I should tell you more about myself. I'm 39 years old. and until recently, I thought I was just a regular guy with Mexican heritage. My grandparents always said our family became Mexican generations ago, but they never talked much about where we came from before that. Now I'm starting to understand why. We were Comanche, but my family hid that part of themselves to stay safe. There's always been this empty feeling inside me, like I was missing a piece of myself but couldn't figure out what it was. My ex-wife, Maria, used to get so frustrated with me. "Why are you so obsessed with that dessert?" she'd ask. I couldn't explain it, not even to myself. How could I tell her that sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, feeling like I needed to be there? We split up 3 years ago. She moved back to Dallas, and I stayed here, drawn to this place for reasons I couldn't explain. The dreams started getting worse after the divorce. I'd see myself hunting buffalo, riding bareback across open plains. In other dreams, I'd be running from men on horses, the sound of gunshots ringing in my ears. I'd wake up sweating, my heart pounding, feeling like I'd actually been there. You ever feel like you remember things you never actually saw? I asked. My friend Robert Crowfeather one day. Robert is Apache, works in the cultural resource department of the park. At least, I think he does. Sometimes I wonder if he's really there at all, or if I'm just imagining him. Your body remembers what your mind forgets, he told me, not seeming surprised by my question at all. Last month, I found my grandmother's old cross in a box of family things. I always thought it was just a regular Christian cross, but looking at it now, I could see it wasn't. There were little pouches sewn into the back, filled with herbs and small objects. Robert told me later it was a disguised Comanche medicine bundle, a way my ancestors kept their real beliefs while pretending to convert. Working for the Park Service doesn't exactly prepare you for this kind of thing. They train us about wildlife and geology, how to help lost hikers and what to do if we find artifacts. They don't tell you what to do when the past starts bleeding into the present, or when you start remembering things from before you were born. Sometimes my body hurts in strange ways. A sharp pain in my right shoulder that comes and goes. A throbbing in my left leg that makes me limp for a few steps before it disappears. Robert says these are phantom pains, places where my ancestors were wounded long ago. The scariest part is when words I don't know come out of my mouth. The first time it happened, I was alone in the desert, talking to myself about a rock formation. Suddenly I said something in a language I'd never heard before. The words felt natural on my tongue, but I had no idea what they meant or where they came from. When I told Robert about it later, he just nodded like he'd been expecting it. "You're speaking Comanche," he said. "Your blood remembers. I don't know what's happening to me, but I feel like I've been drawn back to this place for a reason. Like I'm supposed to find something here, or maybe remember something that was forgotten a long time ago, something my family has been running from for generations." The first really strange thing happened when I was checking an area we were planning to open for hiking trails. I spotted something shiny in the dirt and bent down to pick it up. It was a brass button, old, worn, with an eagle design. Military, probably cavalry from the 1800s. Not too unusual. We find stuff like this sometimes. But right next to it was a stone arrowhead. Comanche by the look of it. The weird part, they were in the same layer of soil. That's impossible. They should have been in different layers, separated by decades of dust and dirt. I showed them to Robert later. "Time isn't always a straight line here," was all he said. That same day, I heard gunshots. I grabbed my radio, thinking maybe we had poachers. But when I called in, nobody else had heard anything. Then came the war cries, high, piercing yells that made my hair stand on end. I ran toward the sound, but when I got there, the canyon was empty. Just rocks and sand and the wind. No tracks, no people, nothing. But I know what I heard. A battle that ended 150 years ago, still playing out in the empty air. The photographs were the hardest to explain. I found them scattered across a flat rock, like someone had left them there for me to find. Old, sepia-toned photos of people in traditional Comanche dress. The faces looked familiar somehow. When I picked them up, I realized why. They looked like my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, but that was impossible. Photography didn't even exist when my Comanche ancestors lived here. "How do I know all this stuff?" I asked Robert one evening, as we sat watching the sunset. I'd been telling him about Comanche hunting techniques, how they used every part of the buffalo, the way they made their arrows. I never studied this. I never even knew I was Comanche until recently. "Your blood knows," he said simply. The knowledge was always there, just sleeping. I started noticing other changes too. My body would get hot, fever hot, when I approached certain areas of the park, places where, according to the history books, massacres had happened. My skin would burn like I was standing too close to a fire, even on cool days. The GPS on my phone started acting weird too. The coordinates would be correct, showing exactly where I was in the modern park, but what I saw around me sometimes didn't match. Once, instead of the visitor center parking lot, I saw an open plain with teepees in the distance. I blinked, and it was back to normal. Asphalt and cars and tourists with cameras. The wind got louder, more insistent. When it blew through the canyons, I could hear words now. Comanche words. "Remember everything," they seemed to say. "Remember what happened here." I found rock formations that shouldn't exist. Stones arranged, in patterns like the burial platforms I'd seen in my dreams. Robert told me all those platforms had been destroyed by settlers and soldiers long ago. But here they were, appearing to me when nobody else could see them. My face started to change. Too, not dramatically. Nobody else noticed, but I could see it when I looked in the mirror. My cheekbones seemed higher, my eyes a little different. Like my original Comanche features were pushing through generations of mixed heritage. The strongest feeling was the urge to perform burial rites. I'd find myself kneeling in empty desert, my hands moving to prepare a body that wasn't there, my mouth speaking prayers I'd never learned. I was performing ceremonies for people who had died long ago, whose bones had long since turned to dust, but somehow they weren't gone. Not completely. Their memories lived on in the desert, in the rocks, in my blood. And something was waking those memories up. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I was supposed to lead a tour group that morning, but I called in sick. The dreams had been so bad the night before that I'd barely slept. In them, I saw a woman standing on a ridge, watching me. She wore traditional Comanche clothes, her hair in 2 long braids, but her face looked like mine. Or rather, mine looked like hers. I knew I had to find her. I drove to the park before sunrise and hiked out to a remote area where tourists rarely go. The place had been calling to me for weeks. She was waiting for me there. "Grandson," she said in Comanche, and somehow I understood every word. "I have been waiting for you to remember." My throat felt dry. "Who are you?" "I am your great-great-grandmother. I am the one who remembers what our family chose to forget." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. She wasn't exactly solid. The early morning sunlight seemed to shine through her a little, but she wasn't exactly a ghost either. She was more real than that. "Our people were dying," she continued. "Your great-grandfather chose to hide who we were, to become Mexican, to survive. He buried our memories, our traditions, our language. He thought he was protecting us." Her eyes were sad. But something should not stay buried. She stepped closer, and I could see that her body wasn't quite normal. It seemed to contain things, images, scenes, faces, moving beneath her skin like fish under the surface of a pond. "I can give it all back to you," she said. "Everything that was taken, everything that was forgotten. I can make you truly Comanche. Again." "How?" I whispered. I will show you everything that happened to our people. You must see it all. Feel it all. Only then can you truly remember." Before I could answer, she touched my forehead. Pain exploded behind my eyes. I saw soldiers riding into camps, shooting women and children. I saw families fleeing across rivers, hiding in caves. I saw my ancestors changing their names, cutting their hair, pretending to be something they weren't just to stay alive. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the flood of memories that weren't mine, but suddenly were. Hundreds of years of joy and suffering poured into my mind all at once. My head felt like it would split open. "Stop!" I gasped, but she didn't. "This is who you are," she said. "This is what was taken from you." The world around me started to shift. One moment I was in the desert in 1983. The next I was running from cavalry in the 1860s. Then hiding in a Mexican village in the 1890s. Then sitting in my grandmother's kitchen in the 1950s as she secretly taught me words in a language we weren't supposed to speak anymore. "What's happening to me?" I cried out. "You are remembering," she said simply. "Your body is remembering what it means to be Comanche." She began to pull memories from deep inside me, things I never knew were there, the location of sacred sites, the words to prayers, the names of ancestors going back generations. It felt like she was performing surgery on my soul, digging out parts that had been buried. Then they appeared, other figures surrounding us in a circle, Comanche men and women from different times, wearing everything from traditional dress to partial military uniforms to modern clothes. My ancestors, watching silently. "They have come to judge," my great-great-grandmother said, "to see if you are worthy of remembering." The desert around us changed. The past and present existed together, modern hiking trails running alongside ancient Comanche camps, cavalry soldiers riding past my parked truck, helicopters flying over buffalo herds. Reality was breaking apart, time periods stacking on top of each other like slides in a projector. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "We want you to choose," she said. "To remember everything or to forget forever. You cannot live between worlds any longer." The circle of ancestors moved closer, their eyes fixed on me, waiting for my decision. I stood there, surrounded by the ghosts of my ancestors, my head pounding with memories that weren't mine, or maybe they had been mine all along. "I don't understand what you want me to do," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You must choose," my great-great-grandmother said. "Live in comfortable ignorance, or accept the painful truth of who you are. But you must choose now, at this place." She gestured toward a small spring bubbling up from the rocks nearby. I hadn't noticed it before. "This is where our family made their last stand," she said. "Where your great-grandfather's parents died so he could escape. The last place we were truly Comanche." I took a step toward the spring, and a wave of memories hit me so hard I fell to my knees. Gunshots, screaming, the smell of blood and smoke, children crying. I could feel bullets tearing through my flesh, not my flesh, but the flesh of those who came before me. Their pain became my pain. "Stop!" I cried out. "It's too much. I can't take it all at once." "You must," she insisted. "All of it or none. There is no halfway." I clutched my head. The memories were coming faster now, centuries of knowledge and suffering pouring into my mind like a flash flood. I saw how to track buffalo, how to speak to the spirits, how to hide who you are to survive in a world that wants to destroy you. It was beautiful and terrible all at once. "You're killing me!" I gasped. My nose was bleeding, my vision blurring. "Your mind is fighting what your blood already knows," she said. "Stop fighting." The circle of ancestors watched silently, their faces neither kind nor cruel, just waiting. Robert appeared beside me then, kneeling down to look me in the eye. "You can do this, Miguel," he said gently. "Help me make it stop," I begged him. He shook his head. "I can't, I'm not really here." What do you mean? I died in 1967, he said simply. I've been guiding you all this time, helping you find your way back. But I'm not alive, Miguel. I'm like them. He nodded toward the circle of ancestors. I stared at him in shock. All those conversations, those hikes, those moments of friendship, had I imagined them all? You needed a guide, he said, as if reading my thoughts. So I came. I looked at the faces around me, my ancestors, Robert, my great-great-grandmother. The weight of their expectations pressed down on me like the desert sun. If I accept this, I said slowly, what happens to me? To who I am now? You become more, my great-great-grandmother said, not less. You don't lose yourself. You find the part that was missing. I closed my eyes. The pain was unbearable, but underneath it was something else, a sense of belonging I'd never felt before. A connection to this land, to these people, to a history that had been stolen from me. I accept, I whispered. I accept it all. The pain didn't stop. It got worse. I fell forward onto my hands and knees, my body shaking. But I didn't fight it anymore. I let the memories come, let them fill all the empty spaces inside me, the good and the bad, the joy and the suffering, the pride and the shame. All of it belonged to me now. I don't know how long I knelt there, minutes or hours. It all blurred together. When I finally opened my eyes, the circle of ancestors was gone. Only my great-great-grandmother remained, watching me with sad, proud eyes. It is done, she said. You remember now. I stood up slowly, my body aching like I'd been in a fight. I looked down at my arms and gasped. Thin scars had appeared on my skin, traditional Comanche markings that I somehow knew were symbols of courage and protection. My ancestors' scars, now visible on my body. What happens now? I asked. Now you become the keeper, she said. The one who remembers, so others don't have to forget. She reached out and touched my chest right over my heart. Guard these memories well. Teach those who are ready to learn. Heal what was broken. Then she was gone, and I was alone in the desert. Except I wasn't really alone anymore. I carried them all with me now. All those voices, all those lives. I drove back to park headquarters, in a daze. Nobody seemed to notice anything different about me, though I felt completely changed inside. I requested a transfer to cultural resources the next day. They were surprised. I'd always been a field ranger, but they approved it. That was 5 years ago. I'm 44 now. I spend my days documenting the sites where my people lived and died, protecting places most people don't even know are sacred. On weekends, I teach Comanche language and history to children from the reservation, helping them connect with the heritage many of their parents and grandparents were forced to hide. Sometimes visitors ask me how I know so much about Comanche culture. I just smile and say I've studied it for a long time. In a way, that's true. I've been studying it for generations. The desert still speaks to me. I still see things others don't. Glimpses of the past layered over the present, but it doesn't frighten me anymore. I understand now that time isn't as simple as we think. Some moments leave marks that never fade. Robert still visits sometimes. I know he's not real, at least not in the way most people would define real. But we have good talks. He tells me I'm doing well. My ex-wife came to visit last year. She said I seemed different, more peaceful, more sure of myself. She's right. I finally know who I am, where I belong. I'm the memory keeper now, the one who remembers, so the rest of us don't have to forget again. My name is David Whitman, and I came to the Ozark Hollows to find silence. What I found instead was a symphony of suffering that would forever change me. The first thing I noticed was how beautiful the autumn wind sounded as it moved through the trees. Golden leaves danced around me, creating a melody that seemed almost too perfect. It wasn't until my third day hiking these remote trails that I realized the music was hiding something darker beneath its harmony. Do you hear that? I asked Emma, who was setting up her research equipment nearby. She looked up, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. Hear what? She replied, but I couldn't explain it then. How do you tell someone that the wind sounds like people crying? These forests felt strange from the beginning. The bark on the trees felt warm under my fingers, almost like skin. When a leaf fell on my tongue by accident, it tasted salty, like tears. Even the shadows seemed wrong. They didn't just darken the ground, they made sounds, tiny whimpers that followed me along the path. Emma had told me about this place before we came. This hollow is where hundreds of Cherokee families died during the forced removal, she'd explained. The Trail of Tears passed right through here in 1838. I nodded like I understood, but I didn't feel the weight of her words until I stood on that ground, earth that seemed to breathe with grief. I'm not a historian like Emma. I was just a paramedic until 6 months ago, when the screams became too much. That's why I came here, to escape the sounds of human suffering. Ironic that I chose a place where the land itself suffers. On our 4th morning, I discovered something impossible. A rock formation that looked ordinary from a distance created perfect acoustics when you stood in just the right spot. The wind passing through it sounded like voices. Not modern voices, but old ones, speaking a language I didn't understand but somehow recognized in my bones. "Emma," I called out, my voice shaking. I think I can hear them." She came to where I stood, her recorder in hand. At first she heard nothing, but then her eyes widened. The sound was building, not just wind anymore, but a blend of natural noises and something else, something that shouldn't exist nearly 2 centuries later. "It's impossible," she whispered, but we both knew what we were hearing. That night we found the cave, a small opening in the limestone that looked like a mouth frozen in song. Inside, tiny crystal formations caught our flashlight beams and threw them back at us like tears. And when Emma accidentally brushed against one, it made a sound, a single perfect note that hung in the air for too long. The forest was changing around us, or maybe we were just starting to see it for what it always had been, not just trees and rocks and dirt, but an orchestra built around human pain. Every bird call, every rustling leaf, every creak of a branch seemed to be building towards something. On the 6th day, we found the flute. It was lying perfectly preserved on a bed of moss, as if someone had just set it down moments ago. But no one was there, and the moss had grown around it, holding it like a precious memory. When the wind blew through the clearing, the flute made a sound without being touched. That's when I knew we weren't alone. The forest wasn't just remembering. It was playing a song that had started in 1838 and never stopped. And somehow, we had become part of that terrible, beautiful music. Every hill and valley we passed seemed perfectly shaped to carry sound. Standing in one hollow, I could hear Emma's whisper from hundreds of feet away, crystal clear as if she spoke directly into my ear. The land itself was an instrument, tuned over centuries to play this one specific lament. By the end of that first week, I could feel it all building towards something bigger, a crescendo that had been gathering strength since the Cherokee walked these trails in chains. I just didn't know yet if that music would save me or destroy me completely. And I definitely didn't know that soon I would meet the composer of this awful symphony, the thing that waited for us deeper in these haunted woods, the entity that locals only whispered about, if they spoke of it at all. The Bone Singer. I wasn't always afraid of sounds. Before coming to these woods, I was a paramedic for 11 years in St. Louis. I loved my job, saving people, making a difference. But something broke inside me last winter. It was a car crash, a bad one. 4 teenagers coming home from a party. Their car flipped and hit a tree. By the time we got there, 2 were already gone. The other 2 were making sounds I'll never forget. Not screams exactly, but something worse, more raw, more final. I did everything I could, followed every procedure perfectly. But they died anyway, making those terrible sounds right until the end. After that night, something changed in my brain. I started hearing those sounds everywhere, in car horns, in coffee shop chatter, even in my shower running. My partner at work said I would jump every time our ambulance radio crackled. The doctors called it PTSD. They gave me pills that made me foggy, but didn't stop the sounds. 3 months after the accident, I froze during a call. Just stood there while my partner worked frantically to save an old man having a heart attack. That's when I knew I had to quit. I still have the wedding ring, found it in the wreckage of that teenage couple's car. I should have turned it in as evidence, but I couldn't. I keep it in my pocket, and sometimes I hold it tight when the sounds get bad. It's like a little weight that keeps me here, reminds me that their pain is real and so is mine. That's how I met Emma Pritchard. She was running a support group for people with trauma. Not a doctor, just a history professor with kind eyes who'd been through something bad herself. She never talked about what happened to her, but I could tell she understood pain. I'm headed to the Ozarks next month, she told me after group one night. Researching Cherokee removal sites. It's remote, quiet. You might find some peace there. Peace. That's funny now, but I didn't know any better then. Emma wasn't just any historian. She specialized in what she called acoustic archaeology, studying how sound worked at historical sites. She believed the Cherokee people had used the natural acoustics of the Ozarks for their ceremonies, and that knowledge might have been lost during the Trail of Tears. Sound matters, David, she'd said as we drove into the forest that first day. It shapes how we experience everything. Maybe understanding these historic sounds can help you make sense of the ones that haunt you. I didn't tell her then that I was drawn to specific spots in the forest, places that felt important somehow. I'd walk away from our camp not knowing where I was going, and find myself standing in clearings that seemed to hum with energy. Only later did Emma confirm these were spots where Cherokee musicians had likely gathered. It's like you have a compass for suffering, Emma said one night by the fire. Most people walk right past these places without feeling anything. I didn't tell her that the forest sounds were starting to blend with my memories. That when the wind blew a certain way, I could hear that teenage girl asking for her mom, just like she did before she died in my ambulance. Or that sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I couldn't tell if the weeping I heard was from my memories, the forest, or somewhere else entirely. I also didn't tell Emma that I was starting to see things, shadows that moved between the trees when nothing was there, shapes that looked like people playing instruments, but disappeared when I turned to face them. I thought I was finally losing my mind completely. On our 8th day in the forest, Emma's recording equipment started picking up music. Not forest sounds, but actual melodies, complex, haunting songs that shouldn't have been there. When we played back the recordings at night, Emma's face went pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "These are traditional Cherokee morning songs, but with variations I've never heard before. And look at the sound waves. They're too perfect, too structured." That night, I dreamed of bones. Human bones arranged in patterns across the forest floor, curved ribs and long femurs positioned carefully to catch the wind. And in my dream, when the air moved through these terrible instruments, they played the same songs we'd heard on Emma's recordings. I woke up sweating, heart pounding, to find Emma sitting up in her sleeping bag, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" she asked. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if she meant something real or something in my dream. "It's calling us deeper," she said, and I knew she was right. Whatever waited for us in the heart of these woods knew we were here. It was changing its song, incorporating our presence. I could hear my own heartbeat in the rhythm of the wind now. And when Emma breathed, the leaves seemed to sigh with her. We were becoming part of the music, whether we wanted to or not, and the song was building towards something neither of us understood yet. A terrible, beautiful crescendo that had been waiting almost 2 centuries to be heard. On the 10th day, we found the first instrument. It was a small drum, perfectly preserved, despite looking very old. The animal's skin stretched across its top should have rotted away decades ago, but it looked new, as if someone had just made it. The drum sat on a flat rock with no footprints around it except our own. "This shouldn't be here," Emma said, her voice barely a whisper. She reached out to touch it, then pulled her hand back. Cherokee drums from this period are extremely rare. Museums would pay thousands for one in this condition. Maybe someone left it recently, I suggested, though we both knew that wasn't true. We hadn't seen another person since entering this part of the forest 5 days ago. "Look at how the moss grows around it," Emma said, pointing. "It's been here for years, David, but it's impossible." The wind picked up, moving through the trees in a sudden gust. The drum made a sound, a soft, low beat, though nothing had touched it. We backed away, but I couldn't stop thinking about that drum. That night, I heard it in my dreams, its rhythm matching my heartbeat exactly. The next morning, Emma's recorder was playing back voices instead of the forest sounds she'd recorded. They spoke in Cherokee, voices rising and falling in what sounded like names being read from a list. "I never recorded this," Emma said, her hands shaking as she rewound the tape again and again. Each time the same voices spoke the same names. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. "Emma," I said, "isn't that your voice?" She pressed stop, her face pale. "That's impossible." But when she played it again, we both heard it clearly. Among the Cherokee voices was Emma's, pronouncing names we'd never heard before in a language she didn't speak. John Ridge, Eliza Ross, Samuel Cloud, Emma's voice recited on the tape, followed by dozens more names. "Those are documented victims," she whispered, "people who died during the removal, but I never recorded myself saying those names." That afternoon, we found something worse than the drum. We were following a narrow deer path when it opened into a small clearing. At first, I thought someone had arranged white branches in a strange pattern on the ground. It took me several seconds to realize I was looking at human bones. They weren't scattered randomly. They formed a perfect circle with long bones arranged like the spokes of a wheel. In the center was a human skull, yellowed with age, facing the sky. "Emma," I said, my voice cracking, "we need to call someone, the police or—" "These are old bones, David," she interrupted, kneeling at the edge of the circle. "Very old. Look at the coloration, the weathering patterns. These people died a long time ago." "Cherokee?" She nodded slowly. "Almost certainly." As we stood there, the wind began to blow through the clearing. It made a whistling sound as it passed between the bones. Not random noise, but something that sounded almost like music. A low, sad melody that made my chest ache. "Do you hear that?" I asked. Emma nodded, her eyes wide. "They're singing!" I wanted to run, to get as far from that bone circle as possible, but Emma was already setting up her equipment, hands trembling. With excitement or fear, I couldn't tell which. "This is what I came for," she said. "Evidence that the Cherokee used natural acoustics to create music. These arrangements amplify the wind. These are human remains, Emma. We should report this." "To who? And say what? That we found a 200-year-old crime scene that makes music when the wind blows? They'll think we're crazy." She had a point, but something felt deeply wrong about leaving those bones there, arranged in their perfect, terrible pattern. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that bone circle, but in my mind, it was growing larger. More bones being added every minute. And I kept hearing sounds, not just the forest or the wind, but my own memories mixed in, the beeping of hospital monitors, the radio static from my ambulance, the last words of that teenage girl. "Do you hear it?" I asked Emma, who was lying awake beside me in her sleeping bag. "The forest is talking to us," she said quietly, "and I think it's been waiting for someone to listen." The next day, Emma's equipment stopped working normally. Her recorder, her specialized microphones, even her battery-powered laptop. They all produced the same haunting melody whenever we turned them on. No static, no electronic noise, just pure, perfect music that sounded ancient and new at the same time. We found more bone arrangements that day, 7 more circles, each with different patterns, each making different sounds in the wind. And with each new discovery, the music in the forest grew louder and more complex. "It's like they're all playing together," Emma said as we stood in the 7th clearing. "A symphony of pain," I finished for her. "This is the sound of suffering, Emma." She looked at me strangely. "No, it's beautiful. Can't you hear how beautiful it is?" And that's when I realized something was happening to Emma. Her eyes had a glazed look, and she swayed slightly to the rhythm of the bone music. When she spoke, her voice had a sing-song quality it never had before. That night I woke to find her gone from our camp. I found her standing in the bone circle we'd discovered first, her arms outstretched, turning slowly as the wind moved around. Emma!" I called, but she didn't seem to hear me. As I got closer, I realized she was humming, matching the melody the bones made perfectly. And when the wind shifted, so did her song, as if she and the forest were talking to each other. "Emma," I said, grabbing her arm, "we need to leave, now." She turned to me, and in the moonlight her face looked different somehow, older, sadder, with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of pain. "It's almost time," she said, her voice not entirely her own. "The bone singer is coming." "Who's the bone singer?" I asked, fear making my voice shake. Emma smiled, a terrible, empty smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Not who," she whispered. "What?" And as if answering her words, the forest around us erupted into the loudest, most complex music we'd heard yet. Thousands of sounds all at once, building towards something I could feel in my bones was coming for us. The crescendo was building, and we were caught in the middle of it. I dragged Emma back to camp that night, but she wasn't really there anymore. Her eyes kept looking past me at things I couldn't see, and she hummed that bone music constantly. When she did speak, her words made little sense. "They're all around us now," she whispered as I tried to get her to drink some water. "Can't you see them watching? They've been waiting so long." I decided we needed to leave immediately. Whatever was happening in this forest was getting worse. I started packing our things at dawn, throwing supplies into our backpacks haphazardly. "We can't leave yet," Emma said, suddenly clear-eyed. "The bone singer hasn't finished its song." "I don't care about any song," I told her. "You're not well. We need to get you to a doctor." She grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "You hear it too, David. I know you do. The sounds of your past mixing with theirs. Your pain joining their symphony." She was right, and that terrified me more than anything. The forest sounds had been merging with my memories. The teenage girl's voice calling for her mother now sounded like it was speaking Cherokee. The ambulance siren in my head now rose and fell like a tribal chant. "That's why you're here," Emma continued, her eyes boring into mine. "You're attuned to suffering. Your trauma makes you the perfect instrument for their song." I pulled away from her, my heart racing. "I'm not an instrument, and neither are you. This place is doing something to our minds." "Not our minds," she corrected. "Our souls." I shouldered my pack and grabbed hers. "We're leaving, now." That's when the music stopped. All of it, the wind, the leaves, the distant bone circles, fell completely silent. The forest became so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my chest. "It's here," Emma whispered, a smile spreading across her face. I turned slowly, following her gaze to the edge of our campsite. At first, I thought it was just a shadow between the trees. Then it moved forward, and I realized it was a figure, tall and thin. As it came closer, moonlight fell across it, and I had to clamp my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. It wasn't a person, not exactly. It looked like someone had taken the bones from all those circles and arranged them into a human shape. A skeleton made from many skeletons, with extra ribs forming a cage around what should have been its chest. Its skull wasn't one skull, but pieces of many, fitted together like a puzzle. And where its heart should have been, there was a small wooden flute, somehow fused to the bone. "The bone singer," Emma breathed, her voice full of awe. The thing moved with impossible grace, each joint and bone shifting slightly as it walked, and with every movement came music, a soft clicking of bone against bone, a whistle of air through hollow femurs and skulls, creating a melody that made my skin crawl. It stopped at the edge of our camp and seemed to study us. Though it had no eyes, just empty sockets in its patchwork skull, I could feel it watching me. Then it spoke. Not with a voice, exactly. Rather, the spaces between its bones somehow formed. Words in the air, carried to us on the wind. "David Whitman," it said, my name becoming a melody in its strange non-voice. "You who hear the songs of the dying, you who carry the pain of others." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body refused to obey. "And Emma Pritchard," it continued, turning its skull toward her. "You who seek the songs of my people, you who listen when others turn away." Emma stepped forward, reaching toward the thing. I wanted to pull her back, but I still couldn't move. "I've been looking for you," she said to it. "For years. I knew you were real." The bone singer tilted its skull. "I am as real as grief, as real as memory, as real as the songs that never end." It raised what passed for its arms, and the forest erupted into music again. But this time, I could distinguish individual voices in the symphony, hundreds of them, men and women, old and young, all singing in Cherokee. Each voice carried a story, a life cut short, a journey never completed. "Do you hear them, David Whitman?" the bone singer asked. "They sing the songs of my people, the songs of those who died on the trail where they cried." Against my will, I found myself listening, really listening, to those voices. And as I did, images filled my mind. A young mother trying to keep her baby warm in bitter cold. An old man stumbling as soldiers pushed him forward. A teenage boy watching his grandfather die by the roadside, unable to even stop for a proper burial. "These are the stories that were never told," the bone singer said. "The voices that were silenced. They have waited almost 2 centuries for someone to hear them." Then, without warning, the music changed. The Cherokee voices faded, replaced by new ones, voices I recognized with horror. "Help me!" called the teenage girl from the car crash. "It hurts so bad. Please help me." "I can't feel my legs," said her boyfriend, panic in his voice. Other voices joined in, all my patients who had died, all the people I couldn't save. Their cries blended with the Cherokee songs, creating a terrible, beautiful harmony that brought me to my knees. "You hear them both," the bone singer observed. "The suffering of your time and mine. They are not so different, these songs." Emma knelt beside me, her eyes wild with excitement. "Don't you see, David? This is why you're here. Your pain and theirs, it's all connected. The bone singer can help you understand." The skeletal figure moved closer, bone joints clicking with each step. "I can do more than help you understand," it said. "I can free you from your pain by making it part of our eternal song." It extended a hand made of finger bones from different people. "Join us, David Whitman. Add your voice to our chorus. Let your suffering become music that will echo through these hills forever." I looked at the thing's outstretched hand, then at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. The voices from both past and present swirled around me, pulling me in different directions. "What happens if I say yes?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the music. The bone singer's skull seemed to smile, though that should have been impossible. "Your pain becomes purpose," it said. "Your trauma becomes testimony, your life becomes song. And if I say no?" The music grew sharper, harsher. The voices cried out in pain rather than song. Then you remain trapped between worlds, the bone singer said. Neither here with us, nor fully in your own life. Forever haunted by sounds you cannot escape. I looked at Emma again. Her eyes were no longer entirely human. They reflected the same ancient sorrow I saw in the bone singer's empty sockets. Emma's. Already chosen, hasn't she? I asked. The bone singer nodded, bone fragments clicking together. She has been listening for us her entire life. Now she will become part of the song. As if on cue, Emma began to sing, a haunting melody in perfect Cherokee, though she had never spoken the language before. As she sang, her skin seemed to grow paler, more translucent. I could almost see the bones beneath, glowing with an inner light. What's happening to her? I demanded. She is becoming what she was always meant to be, the bone singer replied. A voice for those who have none, a memory keeper, a song made flesh. Emma's singing grew louder, and the forest joined her, every tree and rock and bone circle adding to her melody. She looked at me one last time, her eyes now completely transformed, ancient, knowing, filled with centuries of sorrow and wisdom. Join us, David, she said, her voice overlapping with dozens of others. The song needs you. The bone singer extended its hand again. Choose, it said simply. And as the music reached a fever pitch around us, I knew I had to make my decision. A decision that would either save me or make me part of this eternal, terrible symphony forever. I stood frozen, the bone singer's hand still extended toward me. All around us, the forest played its music, Cherokee death songs, mixing with the sounds from my past. Emma was still singing, her body growing more transparent by the second. I don't understand what you want from me, I said, my voice shaking. The bone singer tilted its skull. Your pain carries power, David Whitman. You hear the voices of the dying. You feel their suffering. Such gifts are rare. It's not a gift, I said bitterly. It's a curse. Those sounds haunt me every day. Because you fight them, the creature replied. You try to silence what should be heard. I thought about that, about all the nights I'd lain awake, trying to block out the sounds of my patient's final moments, about the medications that never quite worked, about how I'd come to this forest seeking silence, only to find more voices. What exactly happens if I join you? I asked cautiously. The bone singer moved its skeletal hand in a sweeping gesture. Suddenly, the clearing filled with figures, transparent shapes of Cherokee men, women, and children. Among them, I saw newer forms, the teenagers from the car crash, other patients I'd lost, all watching me with sad, knowing eyes. You become a bridge, the bone singer explained, between their world and yours, between past suffering and present. Oh, pain! You give voice to those who were silenced. You turn their cries into song. And Emma? I asked, looking at my friend who was now barely visible, her singing merging with the forest sounds. She chose to become memory, it said, to hold the stories that history tried to forget. A different path, but no less important. I closed, my eyes trying to think clearly despite the music pulling at me from all sides. There was something not quite right about this, something that didn't fit. These people, I said, gesturing to the transparent Cherokee figures, they didn't choose this. Their voices were taken from them. How is taking mine any different? The bone singer went still, its bone music faltering slightly. I offer you a choice, it said. They had none. But it's not a fair choice, is it? I pressed, finding courage from somewhere deep inside. Join you or suffer forever. That's not a choice, it's a threat. The music grew sharper, more discordant. The ghostly figures shifted restlessly. Their stories must be told, the bone singer insisted. Their songs must be heard. I agree, I said, surprising myself. But not like this. Not by trapping more. Souls in your endless concert of pain. I turned to Emma, or what remained of her. Emma, this isn't what you wanted. You came here to research, to understand, not to disappear. For a moment I thought I saw recognition flicker in her eyes. The Cherokee deserve to have their stories told, I continued. The people who died here deserve to be remembered. But this, I gestured at the bone circles, the ghostly figures, the skeletal creature before me. This isn't remembrance, it's imprisonment. The bone singer moved toward me, its bone structure creating harsh, angry sounds. You understand nothing, it hissed, wind whistling through its ribcage. Their pain was ignored, their deaths unmourned. I give them voice. No, I said firmly. You use their pain to create more suffering. That's not healing. That's not remembrance. That's just more trauma. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the wedding ring I'd carried since the accident, the small metal circle that had become my personal talisman of guilt. I've been carrying this for months, I said, holding it up, thinking it kept me connected to those I couldn't save, but it wasn't a connection. It was a chain. I was binding myself to a moment of suffering instead of honoring the lives that were lost. I looked directly into the bone singer's empty eye sockets. That's what you're doing too, binding everyone to their worst moments instead of celebrating who they were. The forest music faltered. The ghostly Cherokee figures seemed to listen more intently. What do you propose instead? The bone singer asked, its tone cautious. I took a deep breath. Let them go. Let them be remembered, not trapped. And I'll help tell their stories. The real stories, not just their suffering, who they were, not just how they died. And how will you do this? It challenged. You are one man, with one voice. I looked at Emma, still caught between worlds. Emma and I came here to document, to research, to understand. We can share what we learn. We can make sure people know what happened here. I pointed to Emma's equipment, her recorders, her notes, her camera. Not just the tragedy, but the courage. Not just the deaths, but the lives that came before. Not just the tears, but the songs of hope that came before the sorrow. Something changed in the air around us. The music softened, becoming less painful to hear. Some of the ghostly figures nodded slowly. And what of your own pain? The bone singer asked me. The voices that haunt you? I thought carefully before answering. I need to listen to them, really listen, not to their suffering, but to what they're trying to tell me. That I did everything I could, that their deaths weren't my failure. As I spoke those words, I felt something shift inside me. A weight, lifting that I'd carried for too long. The bone singer was silent for a long moment. Then it turned to the ghostly figures surrounding us, as if consulting them. Whispers filled the clearing, hundreds of voices discussing in languages I couldn't understand. Finally, it turned back to me. There is wisdom in your words, David Whitman. Perhaps there is more than one way to remember. It raised its skeletal arms and the music changed again. Softer now, more peaceful. The ghostly Cherokee figures began to fade, not in fear or pain, but with expressions of release. Wait, I said quickly. What about Emma? The bone singer tilted its skull toward my friends now. Almost transparent form. She has already given much of herself to the song, it said, but perhaps not all is lost. It approached Emma and placed its bone hands on either side of her face. She gasped, her eyes flying open as the bone singer whispered something in Cherokee. Slowly, color returned to Emma's skin. The transparency receded. She collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily but looking human again. I rushed to her side, cradling her head. Emma, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, confused but present. David, what happened? Before I could answer, the bone singer spoke again. She will remember everything, it said. The songs, the stories, the voices, but she will remain herself. A keeper of memories, not a memory herself. The creature turned to me. And you, David Whitman, you have chosen a different path. To hear the songs but not become them, to carry stories forward rather than remain trapped in the past. It reached, out one final time, touching my forehead with a single bone finger. A jolt of something, not quite pain, not quite pleasure, shot through me. "You will always hear the music now," it said, "but you will understand it. It will guide you, not haunt you." The bone singer began to back away, its form already dissolving. "Tell their stories, David Whitman," it said, its voice growing fainter. "All of their stories, the joy and the sorrow, the life and the death, the song complete." And then it was gone, leaving only scattered bones that fell to the forest floor with a soft clatter. The ghostly figures had vanished too. The forest was quiet, not silent, but peaceful. I could hear birds singing, leaves rustling, streams flowing, normal forest sounds. But underneath, just barely audible, was a melody. Not frightening anymore, but beautiful. Sad, yes, but also hopeful. Emma stirred in my arms, sitting up slowly. "I remember everything," she whispered, awe in her voice. "Their names, their faces, their stories. So many stories, David." I helped her to her feet. "Then we have work to do." We spent 3 more days in that forest, but it was different now. We visited each bone circle, respectfully documenting everything. Before carefully gathering the remains for proper burial, Emma recorded the stories that now filled her mind. Hundreds of individual lives that had been reduced to statistics in history books. And I listened, really listened for the first time, not just to the Cherokee voices that I could now somehow understand, but to my own memories too. The patients I'd lost spoke to me not in screams of pain, but in gratitude for my efforts, in forgiveness for my limitations. When we finally hiked out of the Ozarks, we carried more than just research materials. We carried stories that needed telling, voices that needed hearing. Emma's book, Echoes of the Trail of Tears, Lost Voices of the Cherokee Removal, was published. 18 months later, it won awards for its unprecedented detail and sensitivity. Critics wondered how she had uncovered so many previously unknown personal narratives. I went back to medicine, but not emergency care. I work with hospice patients, now helping ease their final journey. Sometimes, when a patient is close to the end, I can hear the music starting, not frightening anymore, but welcoming. A bridge between worlds that we all must cross eventually. And sometimes when I walk in forests or stand in places where great suffering has occurred, I hear whispers of other songs, other stories waiting to be told. I listen carefully, and when I can, I help those voices find their way into the world. The Bone Singer was right about one thing. Some songs should never end, but not because they're trapped in endless repetition of pain, rather because they're carried forward, evolving and growing, honoring what was lost while celebrating what remains. That's the true music of remembrance. That's the lament that heals instead of wounds. That's the song I now help others hear. And somewhere in the Ozark Hollows, I know the forest still plays its gentle melody, not to trap or terrify, but to remind us that every voice matters, every story deserves telling, and every song, even the saddest one, can ultimately lead us home. My name is Catherine Morris, and I never should have come to Glacier National Park alone. But here I am, under a full moon that's turning the mountains silver. The peaks look like sleeping wolves, their silhouettes sharp against the night sky. Sometimes I swear they're breathing. I've always felt at home in the wilderness. Growing up in Montana, these mountains were my playground. But tonight feels different. The wind carries whispers I can't quite make out. The trees seem to watch me. It's like the whole forest is deciding something about me. Then I hear it, a wolf howl, but not like any I've heard before. It splits into impossible harmonies, like a whole pack singing together in perfect sync. The sound wraps around me, probes at me. I can't shake the feeling that it's testing me somehow. As I hike higher, the rocky formations start to look strangely familiar. One cluster of boulders looks exactly like a mother wolf, nursing her young. I blink hard when I think I see tiny human skulls where the cubs should be. When I look again, they're just ordinary rocks. My imagination is playing tricks. It's November 1991, but as the trail winds upward, I see something else. Shadows moving across distant slopes. Not modern hikers. The shapes are bulkier, moving with purpose. Hunters. And what they're chasing is massive, much larger than any animal that should exist here now. I rub my eyes, and the vision fades. The higher I climb, the stranger I feel. My senses seem sharper. I notice every rustle in the underbrush, every shift in the wind. My muscles feel taut, ready to spring. I find myself walking differently, quieter, more balanced. Part of me wants to drop to all fours. The thought should disturb me, but it doesn't. The glacier ahead holds secrets. I've studied enough geology to know that ice preserves things. Pollen, air bubbles, sometimes even entire animals. But tonight I swear I can hear sounds trapped in that ancient ice. Howls from times when different predators ruled these mountains. The air feels heavy with dread, like the forest is holding its breath. I stop to rest against a pine tree and notice deep scratches in its bark. Not random bear marks, they form patterns. My fingers trace them automatically, and a word forms. In my mind, mother. I pull my hand back like I've been burned. How did I understand that? These aren't words. They're animal markings, territorial signs, yet I read them as clearly as English. My thoughts start to feel crowded, like I'm sharing my head with others. Not voices exactly, but presences. A collective mind reaching out to include me. Instincts that aren't mine surface in my consciousness. Protect the territory, hunt the weak, care for the pack. The urge hits me suddenly, in an overwhelming need to hunt. My mouth waters at the thought of a kill. My muscles tense, ready to chase down prey. I want to protect a territory I've never claimed. The rational part of my brain fights against these instincts, but they're getting stronger with every step I take deeper into these mountains. I came here to photograph wildlife, to find peace after everything that happened. But now I'm wondering if something else brought me here. Something older than reason. Something that's been waiting for me. I should probably tell you why I'm really here. I'm 31 years old, and until 6 months ago I was a Navy rescue swimmer. My job was to jump from helicopters into stormy seas to save people. I loved it because it gave me purpose, a family, a mission. Then came the storm that changed everything. We got a distress call from a fishing boat caught in a hurricane. The waves were as tall as buildings, but we went anyway. That's what we did. That's what I did. The helicopter couldn't hold steady. One moment we were hovering, the next we were spinning. I remember the crew's faces, Mike, Danny, and Cooper, all looking at me right before we hit the water. I was the only one who made it out. Now I wear their dog tags around my neck. The gentle clink as I walk reminds me they're with me. Sometimes I touch them before I do anything dangerous, like they're good luck charms. After the crash, I couldn't stand being around people, their questions, their pity. So I came here, to the mountains, where I could be alone. Or so I thought. I met Tyler Banks yesterday at the ranger station. He's 26, a photographer like me, but he's after thrills more than pictures. The kind of guy who stands too close to cliff edges just to feel something. He wanted to team up, said it was safer. I agreed, though something about him makes me uneasy. I find myself watching him, calculating how fast I could reach him if he fell. You always stare at people like, "You're ready to tackle them?" he asked this morning over coffee. I didn't realize I was doing it. "Old habits," I said. "Rescue training." But it's more than that. Since coming to these mountains, my body feels different. Hotter, like I'm running a low fever. I'm hungrier than usual. Yesterday I hiked 8 hours straight without getting tired. Last night I scaled a rock face in the dark that should have been impossible without gear. "You climb like you were born on a mountain," Tyler said, watching me with a mix of admiration and suspicion. The scariest part is how angry I get when I think someone's in danger. Yesterday, a hiker came around a bend too fast near Tyler, and I nearly tackled him. I growled, actually growled. Tyler laughed it off, but I saw the look in his eyes. Catherine, the protector, he joked, but kept his distance the rest of the day. My senses are changing too. I can smell a deer from 100 yards away. I heard Tyler whisper something from across camp last night, and in the dark, I can see almost as well. As in daylight, shapes and movements appear in shades of blue and silver. Without realizing it, I've started organizing our two-person camp like a military operation. Tyler follows my lead without question. When I point to a spot and say, "Sleep there," he does it. When I hand him his share of food, he takes exactly what I give him. It's like we've fallen into roles that were waiting for us. "You'd have made one hell of a drill sergeant," Tyler said this evening. I smiled, but inside I wondered, why does this feel so natural? Why does organizing, protecting, leading feel like coming home? And why do I keep scanning the forest like I'm looking for something else to join us? Tonight, as we set up camp in a small clearing, I catch myself listening for those strange wolf howls again. Part of me wants to answer them. Part of me thinks I already have. This morning, we hiked to an area our map marked as an ancient Blackfoot hunting ground. Tyler wanted photos of the stone circles and old fire pits. I wanted something else, something I couldn't name. The Blackfoot women would hunt here when times were hard, I told Tyler, though I have no idea how I knew that. When the men were gone and children were starving, the mothers would come here. Tyler looked at me strangely. "I didn't know you were into Native American history." I wasn't. The knowledge just appeared in my head like someone had whispered it to me. While Tyler photographed rock formations, I found tracks in the soft dirt near a stream. Wolf prints, but wrong somehow. Too large, each one bigger than my hand. And the pattern was odd. Wolves walk in a straight line, each paw landing in the print of the one before it. These tracks circled and doubled back, almost like someone setting a trap. "Tyler," I called, "come look at these." But by the time he reached me, the tracks had vanished. Not covered up, just gone, as if they'd never been there. Later we found a dead deer arranged in a way that made my skin crawl. The body was surrounded by branches laid out in a perfect circle. Inside the circle with the deer were small rocks, placed where fawns might sleep next to their mother. "Maybe another hiker did it," Tyler suggested, but his voice shook. I shook my head. No hiker did this. The smell hit me then. Not just the deer's blood, but something else. Fear, desperation, death. Each scent was distinct, telling a story of failed hunts and starving young. I could smell the history of this place, layer upon layer of mothers, fighting to feed their children, some winning, many losing. As we hiked further, Tyler's voice began to change. Sometimes mid-sentence, it would drop lower or rise higher. Once he stopped mid-story about his childhood dog, his words shifting into a sound that wasn't quite human. "What's wrong with you?" I asked. He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You were howling." "No, I wasn't," he said, but he looked scared. I started noticing changes in how we moved. We'd fallen into a pattern, circling each other, keeping a perfect distance apart. When one of us stopped, the other would automatically move to a spot that gave us the best view of our surroundings. We were moving like hunting partners without ever discussing it. And I was getting territorial. When we passed another hiking group, I stepped between them and Tyler, my hands curling into fists. The words "my pack" flashed in my head, bright and urgent. That night at camp, I caught my reflection in a metal cup. My face looked sharper somehow. My teeth, when I ran my tongue over them, felt pointed. The nails on my hands had grown faster than normal, and I realized I hadn't needed to cut them in days. Even my hair seemed thicker, especially at the back of my neck. Tyler watched me from across the fire. "You seem different up here," he said quietly. "Different how?" more in charge. Like you own these mountains. I felt a rush of pride at his words, then caught myself. I didn't own anything. This wasn't normal. That night I dreamed of cubs, not wolf cubs, but human babies with my eyes, looking to me for protection. I woke up sweating, my heart racing with the need to find them, to keep them safe. It took minutes of deep breathing to remind myself I didn't have children. I never had. So why did I feel their absence like a physical pain? In the darkness of our tent, I heard Tyler whimpering in his sleep. Without thinking, I reached over and put my hand on his head, the way a mother wolf might nose her cub. He immediately calmed. Something was happening to us. Something was changing us. And whatever it was getting stronger. We pushed deeper into the mountains today, following a trail that wasn't on any map. I just knew it was there, like I could smell it. The sky turned dark early, clouds rolling in fast over the peaks. The temperature dropped, but I barely noticed. My body felt hot, like I was running a fever. "We should head back," Tyler said, looking at the sky. "Storm's coming." "Not yet," I said. The words didn't feel like mine. "We need to keep going." "Keep going where, Catherine?" Tyler grabbed my arm. "What are we looking for?" I couldn't answer him. I didn't know myself, just that something was calling me. We reached a high valley just as the first snowflakes started to fall. The wind picked up, howling between the rocks. And then I saw her. At first, I thought it was just a shadow against the tree line. Too tall to be a normal wolf, too animal to be human. Then she moved. She stood on two legs, at least 9 feet tall, her body covered in thick, dark fur. Her face was a perfect mix of wolf and woman. Long snout, amber eyes, but with an intelligence no animal should have. Around her neck hung bones and teeth like a necklace. Her claws were black and curved, each one as long as my finger. I should have been terrified. I should have run. Instead, I felt drawn to her. "Do you see that?" I whispered to Tyler. He nodded, his face white with fear. "What is it?" "Pack Mother," I said, the name coming to me from nowhere. She howled then, the sound splitting into harmonies like I'd heard before. But now I understood them. She was calling to me, welcoming me, offering me a place in her family. Images flooded my mind. My dead crew, their faces transformed, half human and half wolf, running through these mountains forever. Free from death, free from human weakness. They could be my pack again. I could protect them properly this time. The Pack Mother moved closer, each step deliberate. The snow swirled around her like she controlled the storm itself. I saw now that these mountains were hers. Every rock, every tree, every creature. This was her nursery, her territory. She raised her massive head and sniffed the air, those amber eyes fixed on me. Then she spoke, not in words, but in images that appeared in my head. She showed me what she could do to protect her young. The violence she was capable of made my military training look like child's play. She was the ultimate mother, willing to tear apart anything that threatened her family. Then the feeling hit me, a crushing wave of maternal instinct stronger than anything I'd ever felt. Suddenly, Tyler wasn't just my hiking partner. He was mine to protect, mine to teach, mine to guide. The urge to stand between him and danger was overwhelming. "Catherine," Tyler's voice sounded far away. "What's happening to you?" I realized I'd moved in front of him, my body low and ready to spring, my lips pulled back in a snarl. The Pack Mother circled us, her movements graceful despite her size. She was testing me, watching how I reacted to her presence. I felt the need to show her my strength, to prove I deserved a place in her pack. She stopped directly in front of me and lowered her massive head until we were eye to eye. The intelligence in those amber depths was ancient and cold. She was judging me. More images appeared in my mind, me transformed like her, powerful, immortal, able to protect anyone I loved. Never again would I watch helplessly as those under my care died. I could be the ultimate guardian. The temptation was incredible. Power hummed under my skin at just the thought of it. "She wants something from you," Tyler whispered behind me. "Don't give it to her." But the pack mother had already moved on to Tyler, circling him, sniffing. In my mind I saw her assessment of him, weak, fearful, but useful. Bait. Wait. Bait. The pack mother looked back at me, and this time the message was clear. To join. A pack. I needed to prove myself. I needed to show I understood what real protection meant, sometimes sacrificing the few to save the many, sometimes making hard choices. "Run," I whispered to Tyler. "Now." "Not without you," he said. The pack mother threw back her head and howled again. This time, distant howls answered from all around the valley. We weren't alone anymore. "What's happening?" Tyler grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw fear in his eyes, but something else too. Recognition, like he'd seen all this before. "Tyler," I said slowly, "have you been here before? Have you seen her before?" His eyes darted away. "I don't know what you're talking about." But the pack mother knew. I could see it in the way she watched him. Tyler wasn't just any photographer who happened to meet me at the ranger station. He was part of this. He'd always been part of this. And now I had to decide what that meant. For both of us. The storm hit us full force now, snow swirling so thick I could barely see 10 feet ahead. The pack mother's voice cut through the howling wind, filling my head with one clear command. "Prove yourself. Kill the weak one. Join us forever." I looked at Tyler, who was shivering in the cold I barely felt. The pack mother wanted me to kill him, to show I could make the hard choice, to prove I understood what real protection meant. "Catherine," Tyler's voice shook. "What's she telling you?" I couldn't answer. Part of me, a growing part, thought it made perfect sense. Remove the weak link, strengthen the pack. It was nature's way. "We need to move," I said instead, grabbing his arm. "Now!" We started climbing the nearest cliff face, hoping to find shelter from the storm. The rock was slick with ice, but my fingers found holds that shouldn't have been there. I pulled Tyler up behind me, his movements clumsy compared to mine. "You've been here before," I said as we climbed. It wasn't a question anymore. "You know what she is." Tyler was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me?" He laughed, a harsh sound. "Hey, there's a giant wolf woman in these mountains who turns people into her pack. Want to go hiking with me?" We reached a narrow ledge and stopped to catch our breath. Below us, through the swirling snow, I could see dark shapes moving. The pack was following. "How do you know about her?" I demanded. Tyler's eyes wouldn't meet mine. "I came here last year with my brother. He didn't leave." Suddenly I understood. She took him. Tyler nodded. "She offered him the same thing she's offering you. He chose to stay with her. And you came back to, what? Rescue him?" "I thought I could. I thought if I brought someone else." He trailed off, his face twisted with guilt. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. "You brought me as a sacrifice, to trade for your brother." He flinched, but didn't deny it. "I'm sorry, Catherine. I didn't know what else to do." Rage built. Inside me, hot and sharp. I felt my face changing, my teeth lengthening in my mouth, my nails dug into the rock, leaving deep gouges. "Catherine," Tyler backed away, his eyes wide. "Your face." I caught my reflection in a patch of ice. My features had shifted. Not fully wolf, but no longer fully human either. My eyes glowed in the darkness. I'd been changing, All along, I realized, from the moment I entered these mountains. The pack mother's howl echoed off the cliffs. I could understand her perfectly now. She was calling me home, telling me to complete my first hunt, to taste blood and seal my transformation. And part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to tear Tyler apart for his betrayal. "I've been hunting humans," I whispered, horrified. "All those instincts, those urges, I've been becoming like her." "Not yet," Tyler said. "You haven't killed anyone. You can still choose." The storm intensified, the wind threatening to blow us off our narrow ledge. Through the snow, I saw the pack mother climbing toward us, her massive claws digging into the rock like it was soft dirt. "Choose, daughter," her voice filled my head. "Join us or die as prey." I looked at Tyler, this man who had led me here to die, who had betrayed me from the start. It would be so easy to give in, to let the wolf take over, to have a family again, to never be alone. "I can't go back to what I was before," I told him. "Look at me, I'm already changing." "Then don't go back," he said. "Go forward. Choose something new." The pack mother reached our ledge, her massive form blocking out what little light remained. Behind her, I could see others now, half wolf, half human shapes with glowing eyes. One of them looked at Tyler with recognition. "Matt?" Tyler whispered, reaching toward the creature that had once been his brother. The pack mother snarled and swatted Tyler with one massive paw. He flew backward, nearly falling off the ledge. I caught him just in time, my stronger-than-human arms the only thing keeping him from plummeting to his death. "Let him fall," the pack mother commanded. "He led others to us before you. He is not pack. He is food." I looked at Tyler, dangling, in from my grip, then at the pack mother and her family, a family that could be mine, strength that could be mine. I would never fail to protect anyone again. "Catherine, please," Tyler gasped. "I'm sorry. I thought I could save Matt." Something in his voice reached the human part of me that was still fighting. The part that understood making terrible choices to protect those you love. In that moment, I made my choice. I pulled Tyler back onto the ledge and pushed him behind me. "No," I told the pack mother. "He's mine to judge, not yours." She roared, the sound shaking snow from the peaks above. "Then you choose death." She lunged at us, claws extended. I braced for the impact, knowing I couldn't win, but unwilling to give in. But the blow never came. Tyler shoved me aside and threw himself at the pack mother. "Run, Catherine," he yelled as they both tumbled off the ledge. I screamed his name, watching in horror as they fell. At the last moment, Tyler looked up at me. He smiled. The pack mother's howl of rage echoed through the mountains as she and Tyler disappeared into the storm below. I didn't have time to process what had happened. The rest of the pack was still coming for me. I ran, climbing higher, my body moving with a speed and strength I'd never had before. The storm worked in my favor now, hiding me from their sight, though not from their smell. I reached the summit as dawn broke, the storm finally clearing. Below me stretched the vast wilderness of Glacier National Park. I could hear the pack still searching, their howls angry and frustrated. My hands looked almost normal again, though my nails remained thick and sharp. I could still smell everything for miles, still hear things no human should. The change hadn't fully reversed. I touched the dog tags around my neck. Mike, Danny, Cooper. I hadn't been able to save them, and I couldn't save Tyler either, though he hadn't deserved my protection. But he had, in the end, chosen to protect me. From the valley below, I heard the pack mother's howl one last time. It wasn't anger. Now, it was a promise. She would wait, the mountains would wait, my place in the pack would wait. Part of me, the wild part that had awakened here, wanted to answer that call, to run back down the mountain and surrender to what I was becoming. Instead, I turned and began the long journey back to what humans called civilization. But I knew I'd never truly be part of it again. The pack mother had changed me forever. I was caught between two worlds now, not fully wolf, not fully human. As I hiked down the mountain, I found myself studying everyone I passed, assessing their strength, their worthiness, their potential as pack members. And sometimes, in the quiet moments when I'm alone, I still hear her howling from the peaks, calling me home, reminding me that my true family is waiting. I wonder, looking at you now, if you'd make a good addition to my pack. You have kind eyes, strong shoulders. You look like someone who could survive the change. Would you like to come hiking with me? I know a beautiful spot in Glacier National Park. The pack mother would love to meet you. My name is Catherine Holloway, but everyone calls me Kit. I've been a park ranger in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey for almost 3 years now. Before that, I was an EMT. People think I quit because I couldn't handle losing patients, but the truth is much worse. I quit because I was killing them. It's August 1987, and the heat makes the sandy roads shimmer like a dream or a nightmare. My 16-year-old nephew Danny walks beside me, his Walkman playing news about the Iran-Contra hearings. He's been living with me since the accident that killed his parents 8 months ago. An accident I saw in my dreams before it happened. An accident I failed to stop. Aunt Kit, how much farther? Danny asks, pushing his sweaty brown hair from his forehead. He looks so much like his mother, my sister, that sometimes it hurts to look at him. Just another mile, I say, feeling the familiar weight of the pill bottle in my pocket. The Xanax keeps me calm, but lately I've been wondering if it's making things worse, making the dreams more vivid, making him stronger. We walk past one of the old Nike missile sites, concrete bunkers half buried in the sand like prehistoric monsters. The government built them during the Cold War, preparing for a nuclear war that never came. I wonder sometimes if that was because of people like me, people who saw disasters coming and somehow changed them or caused them. Did you know people are saying the world might end next week? Danny says, rewinding his tape. Or begin again. Or something. It's called the harmonic convergence. I force a smile. New age nonsense. But the truth is, I've been feeling it too. Something building, something coming. The same feeling I had before the school bus crash in '83, before the apartment fire in '85, before my sister's car accident. The pine needles muffle our footsteps as we follow the trail. My head pounds with the dropping air pressure. Storm coming maybe, or something worse. A red-winged blackbird follows us, hopping from branch to branch. Its eyes catch the sunlight, flashing red, the same red I see in my dreams. My radio crackles with static that sounds almost like voices. I turn it off, but the voices continue in my head, telling me where to go, what to see, who will die. You okay? Danny asks, noticing my shaking hands. Just tired, I lie. This fire road follows an old Lenape trail. They say their prophets used to have visions here. Like your dreams, he asks innocently. My heart stops. I never told him about my dreams, about seeing his parents' car sliding off the road into the ravine, about going to the wrong location because I misinterpreted the vision, about arriving too late to save them. What dreams? I ask carefully. Mom used to say you always knew when bad things would happen, that you were special. He smiles at me with complete trust. She said that's why you were such a good EMT. The irony burns like acid. I wasn't a good EMT. I was a killer who always arrived first at the scene because I knew exactly when and where death would strike. Because something was using me to make it happen. My EMT instincts screamed danger from every shadow as we walk deeper into the Pine Barrens. But I can't tell anymore if it's real intuition or if it's him, the Mothman, the creature that's been reading me these visions, using me as his instrument of death for years. And now I've brought Danny, the person I love most in this world, right into his territory. This camping trip was supposed to be about bonding, about healing. But as the shadows grow longer and the birds fall silent, I realize with sickening clarity that something else has been orchestrating our journey all along. Something with red eyes and massive wings that exist across time and space. Something that knows I've finally figured out what I really am. Not a prophet, but a puppet. And now it's time for my final performance. I reach into my pocket and feel the plastic pill bottle. The label says it's for anxiety and panic attacks, but no doctor would prescribe these if they knew the truth. That I'm not suffering from survivor's guilt. I'm living with a killer's conscience. Want a granola bar? I ask Danny, trying to sound normal. He nods, and I dig through my backpack, grateful for the distraction. Every night when I close my eyes, I see them. 23 faces, 23 people who died because I showed up. At exactly the wrong moment, following the directions in my dreams. Old man having a heart attack whose life I could have saved if I'd given the right medication. A teenage girl in a car crash who might have lived if I'd moved her differently. Each one a mistake that didn't feel like a mistake at the time. I found your EMT certificate while cleaning last week, Danny says, munching on his granola bar. It's still in date. You could go back if you wanted. I shake my head. Some doors are better left closed. What I don't tell him is that I still have my dream journal hidden under my mattress. Pages and pages of nightmares that came true. Names, places, times. The way the blood pooled under the school bus. The exact pattern of broken glass at the apartment fire. The way my sister's neck bent at an impossible angle in the wreckage. I look at Danny, feeling the weight of my worst sin. I loved my sister more than anyone. And yet when I dreamed of her car accident, I went to the wrong curve on the wrong road. By the time I realized my mistake and found them, it was too late. Now I take care of her son, and he has no idea that the person he trusts most in the world is the reason he's an orphan. You know these woods really well, Danny says, impressed as I navigate without a map. Of course I do. I've seen every inch of these pine barrens in my dreams, every hidden pond, every unmarked grave, every place where tragedy has struck or will strike. I light a cigarette with shaking hands. I started smoking 3 years ago, hoping the nicotine would mess with my brain enough to stop the dreams. It didn't work. Nothing works. Smoking's bad for you, Danny says, frowning. I know, I reply, but don't put it out. Some small rebellions are all I have left. Danny pulls out his camera and takes a picture of me. He's been into photography lately, saying he wants to document our life together. The thought makes my stomach knot. What if his pictures start showing things that haven't happened yet? What if whatever's happening to me is contagious? Do you ever feel like you're meant to do something important? Danny asks suddenly. Like bigger than just normal life? The question hits me like a physical blow. That's exactly how it started with me. That feeling of purpose, of being chosen, of being special. Everyone wants to feel special, I say carefully. But sometimes ordinary is safer. Is that why you quit being an EMT? To be safer? I look at him, this boy who thinks I'm his hero, and the lie sticks in my throat. Something like that. The sun is getting lower, and we should make camp. Soon. But I'm afraid to stop moving. Afraid of what might find us in the dark. This trip was supposed to help us bond, but now I'm terrified I've led Danny straight into a trap. I can feel it all around us. The watching presence, the gathering power. The Mothman isn't just sending me visions anymore. It's here, waiting. And I have the horrible feeling that this camping trip wasn't my idea at all. That from the moment I took Danny in, we've been heading toward this final confrontation, orchestrated with cosmic precision by something that feeds on human suffering. Aunt Kit? Danny's voice pulls me back. You zoned out again. Sorry, I say, forcing a smile. Let's find a good spot to set up the tent before it gets dark. But as we walk deeper into the pine barrens, I can't shake the feeling that we're walking exactly where something wants us to go. and that by bringing Danny here, I might have made my worst mistake yet. We find a small clearing to set up camp. As Danny hammers in the tent stakes, I notice something in the soft sand that makes my blood freeze. Two large, deep impressions, like something heavy had landed here, something with wings. "What are those?" Danny asks, following my gaze. "Probably just where a fallen branch hit," I lie, but I know better. I've been measuring these marks in my dreams for years, calculating wingspans, trying to understand what kind of creature could leave them. As the sun sets, Danny pulls out his Walkman again, but instead of the news, a strange noise comes from his headphones. He yanks them off, frowning. That was weird. It sounded like Stairway to Heaven, but all wrong, like it was playing backward. A chill runs up my spine. Electronic interference, one of the first signs. Probably just dying batteries, I say, but we both know his batteries are new. While Danny sets up the inside of the tent, I walk a few yards into the woods to gather more firewood. That's when I see it. A perfect circle of dead squirrels and birds arranged on the ground, each one positioned like a person, two larger. Animals, raccoons, lie in the exact positions my sister and brother-in-law were found in their car. I back away, bile rising in my throat. This isn't a coincidence. This is a message. When I return to camp, Danny is fiddling with his camera. "Something's wrong with my film," he says, squinting at the camera back. "I could swear I took pictures of trees and trails today, but I just caught a glimpse of the film, and it looked like accidents or something." My hands shake as I start the campfire. The light probably leaked in and ruined the shots. "Maybe," he says, but doesn't sound convinced. The smell of ozone fills the air, sharp and electric, though there's no storm. It's the same smell that always comes before my worst visions. The smell of the school bus crash, the apartment fire, my sister's accident, my old EMT radio, which I brought for emergencies, suddenly crackles to life even though it's turned off. Through the static, I hear a voice, my voice, calmly reporting casualties and injuries from an accident I handled 3 years ago. I grab the radio and pull out the batteries, but the voice continues for a few seconds before fading. Danny stares at me. "Was that you?" "Just interference from a ranger station," I say. But we both know there are no ranger stations broadcasting on that frequency. As night falls completely, I notice a red glow coming from beneath the sand around our campsite, like something buried is lighting up. Danny sees it too. "Is that normal? Some kind of fungus or something?" "Probably," I say, but I know it's not. It's the same red light that fills my nightmares right before disaster strikes. The red of the Mothman's eyes. The temperature drops suddenly, creating pockets of cold air that smell like hospital disinfectant and something metallic, like blood. Danny hugs himself, shivering. "It was 90 degrees today. How is it so cold now?" I don't answer. I'm staring at the trees surrounding our campsite. Each pine trunk bears a perfect circular burn mark. Together, they form a spiral pattern leading deeper into the forest, like landing lights guiding something. "Maybe we should go back tomorrow," Danny says, his earlier excitement fading. "This place feels weird." I look at the trail signs posted at the edge of the clearing. This morning they showed distances to landmarks. Now they display numbers that turn my stomach. 23 on one sign, 8 on another, 12 on a third. The exact death tolls from the 3 worst disasters I predicted. "Yeah," I say quietly, "we should head back first thing." But as we climb into the tent and zip ourselves into our sleeping bags, I know it's already too late. The Mothman didn't follow us here. It led us here, and whatever it has planned has already been set in motion. In the darkness, I hear Danny's breathing change as he falls asleep. I stay awake, listening to the woods, waiting. The thing about being a prophet is knowing that some disasters can't be prevented. They can only be endured. And whatever disaster is coming for us in these woods, I have a terrible feeling that I won't just witness it. I'll cause it, just like all the others. I must have fallen asleep despite trying to stay awake. The dreams come immediately, vivid and horrifying. I'm back at all the accidents, but this time I can see myself moving like a puppet, my hands doing exactly the wrong things, at exactly the wrong moments. And behind me always is a tall shadow with glowing red eyes. I wake with a gasp. The tent is filled with a strange light, not quite red, not quite black. Danny is sitting up in his sleeping bag, staring at something outside. "Aunt Kit," he whispers, "there's someone out there." I crawl to the tent opening and peer out. At first, I see nothing but darkness. Then I notice them, two glowing red eyes floating about 7 feet off the ground. But they're not normal eyes. They're compound eyes, like an insect's, with dozens of tiny facets, and in each facet I can see a different scene, different accidents, different deaths, different versions of me. "Stay in the tent," I tell Danny, but when I turn around, he's already crawling out the back, drawn by something I can't see. "Danny!" I scramble after him. Outside, the air has changed. It feels thick, like moving through water. The glowing eyes drift closer, and now I can see what they're attached to, a massive shape that seems to shift and change, never quite solid. Grey flesh and moth-like wings, but also tubes and metal pieces that look horribly familiar. Oxygen masks, IV. Lines, defibrillator paddles, equipment from ambulances. My ambulances. It doesn't move like anything alive should move. It's here, then there, like it's skipping through time rather than space. "What do you want?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper. It doesn't speak. Instead, images flood my mind. Every person who died under my care. I see their faces, their final moments. I feel their confusion and pain as my help turned deadly. I see their families grieving, and through it all, I feel a horrible satisfaction that isn't mine, a hunger being fed with each death. Then I see alternate timelines, versions where I saved those people instead of killing them, where I recognized the Mothman's influence and fought against it, where I was a hero instead of a murderer. "Stop it!" I cry out, falling to my knees. I spot Danny standing at the edge of the clearing, his back to me. When he turns, his face is different, older, harder, like mine. "I can see them now, Aunt Kit," he says, his voice eerily calm. "All the people who are going to die, I can see how to save them, or how to make sure they don't. The Mothman is changing him, making him like me. Another prophet, another killer." "Don't listen to it, Danny," I shout, trying to reach him through the thick air. "It's lying to you." The creature moves between us, its body covered in what look like license plates embedded in its flesh. With a sick feeling, I recognize the numbers. They're from every fatal car accident I responded to. Trophies. "It's been doing this for decades," Danny says, but it's not really his voice anymore. Finding people who can see the future and turning their gift into a curse. People who try to help but end up causing exactly what they feared. The Mothman's presence grows stronger, and suddenly, I'm not just seeing the deaths I caused, I'm experiencing them. I'm the old man feeling the wrong medication stop my heart. I'm the teenage girl feeling my spine crush as I moved incorrectly. I'm my sister seeing the headlights come around the curve, realizing help isn't coming because her own sister went to the wrong place. The pine barrens around us twist and change, transforming into a horrible museum of my failures. The trees become burning buildings. The sand turns to shattered glass and spilled blood. The air fills with screams. And through it all, Danny is changing more and more. His eyes begin to glow with the same red light as the Mothman's. "I can see your death, Aunt Kit," he says, his voice now a perfect blend of his own and the creature's. In human tones, "I can see exactly how you die here in these woods tonight." He describes it in perfect, terrible detail, how I'll try to save him, how I'll make the wrong choice, how I'll become the cause of one final, unforgivable disaster. The Mothman hangs in the air between us, its wings creating wind that sounds like laughter. I realize with horror that this is what it wanted all along. Not just to use me as its instrument of death, but to create more like me, to spread like a virus through my family, through the people I love. And Danny is next. "Danny, listen to me," I shout, trying to push through the heavy air toward him. "It's not giving you a gift, it's using you, just like it used me." The Mothman's wings beat faster, creating a wall of wind between us. But I need to reach Danny, need to save him from becoming what I am. A sudden clarity washes over me. For years, I've been running from the truth that I was responsible for those deaths, that I was the Mothman's willing puppet. Every time I followed a vision, I was making a choice to trust the creature instead of my own instincts. "I accept it," I say loudly, standing straight. "Every death, every mistake, they were my choices, my responsibility." The wind falters. The Mothman seems to flicker like a bad TV signal. I understand now. It needs me to deny, to blame the visions, the dreams, anything but myself. My denial feeds it somehow, creates the energy it uses to manipulate reality. "Danny," I call. It can only control people who don't take responsibility for their actions, who think they're just following fate. Danny blinks, the red glow in his eyes dimming slightly. "But the visions, they're so real." "They're real, but they're not fixed," I say, taking a step toward him. "They're possibilities. We choose which ones come true by how we respond." The Mothman shrieks, a sound like metal tearing and static electricity. It swoops between us, its body shifting more rapidly now, becoming less solid. I force myself to look directly at it, to really see it for the first time. Not a monster, not a god, a parasite, something that needs human hosts to affect our world. "You've been feeding it," I tell Danny, "just like I did. It shows you disasters, so you'll try to help, but your help is exactly what causes the disaster. It's a loop, and the only way to break it is to refuse to play." The Mothman's form becomes more desperate, more chaotic. Images from the harmonic convergence flash around us, planets aligning, energy fields changing. I realize the creature is using this cosmic event to gain power, to open doorways between timelines. In each one, I see myself becoming something worse, a deliberate killer instead of an accidental one, a willing servant to the Mothman instead of an unwitting tool. "You need to know the truth, Danny," I say, fighting to stay focused as reality warps around us. "About your parents, about why I wasn't there to save them." The Mothman screeches again, louder this time. It doesn't want this confession. "I saw their accident in a dream, but I went to the wrong place because the Mothman led me there. I didn't fail to save them. I helped kill them." Tears stream down my face. "I'm the reason they're dead." Danny's face crumples. The red glow leaves his eyes completely. "No. You tried to save them. You always try to save everyone. And that's exactly what it counts on," I say, finally reaching him, grabbing his shoulders. "My need to save people is what makes me the perfect killer." The world around us seems to stutter and jump, like we're trapped in a broken film reel. The Mothman circles us, its form becoming more desperate, more hungry. I feel something building, a choice point, a moment where everything could change, or where everything could become permanently fixed. "We need to leave now," I tell Danny. "We need to walk away from this, both of us, reject the visions, reject the power." I take his hand and start walking toward the trail that leads out of the Pine Barrens. Each step feels like moving through concrete. The Mothman screams, and suddenly we're not in the present anymore. We're standing on a road, the road where Danny's parents died. Their car is approaching the curve. "This is your last chance to save them," the Mothman's voice whispers in my mind. "Your last chance to be a hero instead of a killer." I feel the pull, the desperate need to run toward the car, to try again, to fix my mistake. "It's not real," I tell Danny, squeezing his hand. "It's a trap." "But it looks so real," he says, his voice breaking. "Mom and Dad are gone," I say firmly. "And we can't bring them back. Not even for the price of our souls." The Mothman rages as we turn our backs on the scene, on the false chance at redemption. The road dissolves around us, and we're back in the Pine Barrens. But something's still wrong. The air feels electrified, like right before lightning strikes. The Mothman isn't giving up. "You think you can just walk away?" Danny says suddenly, but it's not his voice. He pulls his hand from mine, his eyes glowing red again. "You're mine. You've always been mine. And now he's mine too." Danny pulls out a hunting knife, the one I packed for the trip. He holds it with unnatural stillness. "Danny, fight it," I plead. "You're stronger than it is." But I can see I'm losing him. The Mothman is pouring everything it has into this final manipulation, using the one person I love most to break me completely. As Danny steps toward me with the knife, I face the most terrible choice of all. I could save myself, but lose Danny to the Mothman forever. Or I could save Danny, but at a cost I can barely imagine. "I won't fight you," I tell him, dropping to my knees. "If this is how it ends, so be it. But I won't hurt you, and I won't let it use me to hurt anyone else ever." Again, the knife shakes in Danny's hand. The red glow in his eyes flickers. "Aunt Kit?" His real voice breaks through, confused and frightened. "What's happening to me?" "Fight it, Danny," I urge. "Remember who you are. Remember who I am. We're not killers. We're not its puppets." The Mothman howls, a sound of rage and hunger and desperation. It's losing its grip on Danny, losing its grip on me. The knife falls from Danny's hand. He collapses beside me, sobbing. I hold him close, feeling the Mothman's presence weaken with each second that passes without bloodshed, without disaster. "Is it over?" Danny whispers. I look up. The Mothman is still there, but fading, becoming transparent. Its red eyes dim, like dying embers. "Not yet," I say, "but soon." As the sun begins to rise, the creature that has haunted me for years dissolves like morning mist. Not dead. Creatures like that probably can't die. But banished, weakened, forced to find new profits, new disasters, new feeding grounds. Danny and I sit in silence as the normal sounds of the Pine Barrens return, birds singing, wind in the pines. The world feels solid again. Real. "Will it come back?" Danny asks finally. "I don't know," I answer honestly. "But if it does, we'll be ready, because now we know the truth." We pack up our camp in silence. The marks on the ground, the burn circles on the trees, they're all gone, as if they never existed. But we know what we saw, what we felt, what we almost became. As we walk out of the Pine Barrens, I feel lighter than I have in years. The burden of prophecy, of responsibility for disasters I couldn't control, begins to lift. I was never meant to save everyone. I was only meant to try my best, to accept my limits, to take responsibility for my choices without taking responsibility for the entire world. "What happens now?" Danny asks as we reach the ranger station. I look at him, this boy who has seen things no child should see, who has faced a darkness most adults would run from, who knows the worst truth about me and is still here. "Now we live," I say simply, "one day at a time. No visions, no prophecies, just us." The red-winged blackbird that followed us into the woods follows us out again, but its eyes are just eyes. Now no otherworldly glow, no hidden meaning, just a bird, living its life in the present, not trying to change a future that doesn't exist yet. As we drive away from the Pine Barrens, I know the Mothman is still out there somewhere, still hunting for profits, still feeding on human suffering and fear, but it won't feed on us anymore. That's one future I can predict with absolute certainty. My name is Ezra Blackthorne, and I've been running from the truth for too long. These mountains have a way of keeping secrets, but some secrets eat away at you from the inside until there's nothing left but a hollow shell. That's what I've become. It's October 1974, and the whole country is still reeling from Nixon stepping down. Everyone's talking about lies and cover-ups like it's something new. If they only knew. Out here in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, we've been burying the truth for generations. I grip the steering wheel of my park ranger truck a little tighter as I drive up the winding mountain road. My clipboard with all those falsified safety reports is still stuffed under the seat. 7 good men died because of those lies. 7 families broken because I chose the mining company's bonus money over doing what was right. You're awful quiet. This morning, Mr. Blackthorne, says Tommy Whitmore from the passenger seat. He's just 19, this Cherokee kid with sharp eyes that seem to look right through me. His grandfather's medicine bag hangs around his neck. I try not to stare at it. Just thinking about the patrol route, I lie. Another lie to add to my collection. Tommy nods and fiddles with his transistor radio. Nixon's voice crackles through. The static, something about forgiveness and moving forward. I almost laugh. There's no moving forward from what I did. We park at the trailhead near Buffalo Creek. 2 years ago, 125 people died when that dam broke. Everyone knows the mining company was to blame, but nobody paid for it. Just like nobody paid for what happened to my crew. My grandfather used to say these mountains remember everything, Tommy says as we start walking. Every drop of blood, every broken promise. I nod like I understand, but my throat tightens. If these mountains remember, then they remember how my grandfather helped murder Tommy's grandfather back in '58 over mineral rights. They remember how I ordered my crew to dig in that restricted area, ignoring all the Cherokee warnings about disturbing sacred burial grounds. The morning fog rises from the valley as we walk, thick and ghostly like souls trying to escape. I count my steps silently, always stopping at 7, a nervous habit I picked up after the accident. 1 count for each man I killed. You ever been to the old mine entrance? Tommy asks. Not since they sealed it, I say, another half-truth. I've stood outside it nearly every night in my dreams, hearing my men screaming from behind the concrete barrier. Tommy doesn't know. I was once a mine foreman before I hid myself away in this park ranger job. He doesn't know that his trusted hiking partner is the reason his people's sacred grounds were violated. He doesn't know that the bonus check that paid for my truck came from the same company that ordered the hit on his grandfather. As we walk deeper into the forest, I feel the weight of my hip flask against my leg. The moonshine inside is mixed with my heart pills. Liquid courage, I call it. But there's not enough moonshine in all of West Virginia to wash away what I've done. We're supposed to check for trespassers near the old Cherokee burial stones, I tell Tommy, my voice steady, despite the storm inside me. Company's worried about protesters. What I don't say is that I know every inch of those burial grounds. I'm the one who marked them for excavation, knowing exactly what lay beneath, knowing exactly what we were disturbing. Tommy nods, his young face serious. My people have been trying to protect those grounds for generations. The irony burns in my chest. This boy trusts me, looks up to me even. He doesn't know he's walking with the enemy, with a man whose hands are stained with the blood of his people and my own crew. The radio on my belt crackles with static as we approach the ridge that overlooks the sealed mine entrance. For a second, I swear I hear voices in the static, familiar voices calling my name. Something tells me this won't be a routine patrol. The mountain is finally ready to collect its debt. The forest gets quiet as we near the old mine. And I mean, really quiet. Even the birds stop singing. It's like the whole mountain is holding its breath. You feel that, Tommy asks, his voice barely above a whisper. I nod. The air feels heavy, like right before a storm. My ears pop from the pressure change. Tommy pulls his jacket tighter around himself. It's colder here, he says. He's right. The temperature has dropped at least 10 degrees, even though the sun is high in the sky now. My breath comes out in little clouds. Probably just a weather pocket, I say. But I don't believe my own words. We follow the old mining road that cuts through the forest. This road was built over an old Cherokee trail. Tommy knows it. I know it. Neither of us says it out loud. I wipe my sweaty palms on my pants. My chest feels tight, like someone sitting on it. The guilt, it's always there, but today it feels heavier, more real somehow. My grandfather used to tell stories about this place, Tommy says as we walk. He said there's something under the mountain, something that feeds on bad things people do. My mouth goes dry. What kind of stories? He called it the shepherd, said it collects souls of people who died from betrayal, herds them together. In the dark, I try to laugh it off, but it comes out like a cough. Sounds like an old folk tale to scare kids away from the mines. Tommy shakes his head. My people don't tell scary stories just to scare. They tell them as warnings. Suddenly, I spot something that makes me stop in my tracks. Footprints in the mud ahead of us. 7 sets walking in a line. Someone's been here, Tommy says, crouching down to look closer. My heart pounds against my ribs. 7 sets, 7 men, just like my crew. They're fresh, Tommy adds. But there's no way. No one should be out here, especially not 7 people walking in formation like miners heading to a shift. A sound drifts through the trees, metallic, rhythmic, the sound of pickaxes hitting stone. You hear that? I ask, my voice cracking. Tommy cocks his head. Hear what? The sound fades. Maybe I imagined it, but then my radio crackles to life on its own. Through the static, I hear voices, familiar voices. Safety support in Section 5 needs replacement. Gas levels rising in the East Tunnel. Foreman says dig anyway. I rip the radio from my belt and switch it off. Tommy stares at me. What was that? He asks. Radio interference, I say quickly. Happens all the time up here. But my hands are shaking so bad, I can barely clip the radio back on my belt. We keep walking, and I can't shake the feeling we're being followed. Every time I look back, there's nothing there. Just trees and shadows. But the shadows seem darker than they should be at midday. Look, Tommy points to a tree ahead. Hanging from the branches are lunch pails, mining lunch pails dangling like strange fruit. 7 of them. What the hell, I whisper. Tommy walks toward them, but I grab his arm. Don't touch them. Something isn't right. Those lunch pails look exactly like the ones my crew carried, the ones that were buried with them when the ceiling came down. A smell hits us, methane mixed with something worse, something rotting. We should go back, I say, but my feet won't move. Mr. Blackthorn, Tommy says slowly. The markers are changing. He's right. The trail markers on the trees aren't in English anymore. They're in Cherokee, and they all point toward the sealed mine entrance. The wind picks up, carrying whispers that sound like my name. Black dust begins to fall from the clear sky, coating our shoulders like cold snow. My grandfather said when the shepherd is coming, the mountain bleeds coal, Tommy whispers. My heart is hammering so hard I think it might burst. This isn't right, this isn't normal. But deep down, I know what's happening. The mountain remembers, and it's finally coming to collect. In the distance, I see lights. 7 pairs of mining. Helmet lights bobbing between the trees, coming toward us. Run, I tell Tommy, but it's already too late. We don't run. We can't. My legs feel like they're stuck in cement. Tommy stands beside me, his breath coming in short, quick gasps. The 7 lights move through the trees, getting closer. With each step they take, the forest around us changes. The trees seem to bend away. The ground beneath our feet feels like it's shifting from dirt to stone. Mr. Blackthorn, Tommy whispers. What's happening? I can't answer him. My throat is too dry, and the truth is too heavy. The lights stop about 20 yards away. In the strange half-light, I can almost make out faces behind those helmet lamps. Faces I know, faces that have been haunting my dreams for years. We need to get to higher ground, I say, finally finding my voice. Follow me. We turn and climb up the ridge, away from the lights. My heart pounds in my chest like it wants to escape. Tommy keeps looking back over his shoulder. They're following us, he says. I know without looking, I can feel them behind us. We reach a clearing near the top of the ridge. From here, we can see the valley below and the concrete barrier that seals the mine entrance, the place where I buried my sins. Tommy, I say, trying to keep my voice steady, there's something I need to tell you. The boy looks at me, his dark eyes reflecting the strange coal dust still falling from the sky. I wasn't always a park ranger, I start, the words feeling like rocks in my mouth. I used to be a mine foreman for the same company that owns these mountains. Tommy's eyes narrow. The same company that fought my people for the burial grounds? I nod. The same one. Before I can say more, a sound rips through the air, an explosion from deep underground. The mountain under our feet trembles. It sounds exactly like the cave-in that killed my crew. What was that? Tommy asks, his voice shaking. Instead of answering, I pull out my hip flask and take a long drink. The moonshine burns all the way down. Your grandfather, I say, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. He tried to stop the mining company from digging on sacred ground, didn't he? Tommy nods slowly. They killed him for it in 1958. The guilt in my chest feels like it might crush me from the inside. My grandfather was working for the company back then. Tommy's eyes widen as he begins to understand. Your grandfather was part of it? He helped plan it, I admit, the words tasting like poison. And my family got rich from the mine they built afterward. Tommy takes a step back from me, his hand going to the medicine bag around his neck. All these years, he whispers. My family thought you were helping us protect what's left. I'm trying to make it right, I say, but the words sound hollow, even to me. Another explosion rocks the mountain. This time, we hear screams echo up from below, the exact sounds I hear in my nightmares. There's more, I force myself to continue. 7 men died in a cave-in 2 years ago. My crew. I remember, Tommy says. Everyone said it was an accident. It wasn't. The truth finally spills out of me like blood from a wound. I ordered them to dig in a restricted area. The same burial ground your grandfather died trying to protect. The company offered a bonus for anyone who could get those minerals out fast. Tommy's face changes as he understands. You knew it was dangerous? I knew it was wrong, I say. I knew we were disturbing sacred ground, but I did it anyway, for money. The coal dust falls heavier now, coating everything in black. The air smells like methane and decay. My grandfather's stories, Tommy says quietly. The shepherd comes. For those who betray others, it feeds on guilt. As if responding to his words, the 7 lights appear at the edge of the clearing. They're closer now, and I can clearly see the faces of my dead crew. Their skin is grey with coal dust. Their eyes empty black holes. Parts of their bodies are crushed and mangled from the cave-in. But worst of all, I can see copper wiring from the safety equipment I never installed, wrapped around their limbs like veins. Run, Tommy, I say, pushing him toward the path that leads back down the mountain. Get as far away from me as you can. But Tommy doesn't move. He's staring at something behind me. I turn and feel my blood freeze. Standing at the other side of the clearing is an old Cherokee man. His clothes are from another time, but I recognize his face from old newspaper clippings. Grandfather, Tommy whispers. The old man's mouth moves, speaking words in Cherokee that I somehow understand. The mountain remembers every promise broken. every life taken. The debt must be paid. The 7 lights from my dead crew draw closer, surrounding us. The old Cherokee man points at me with an accusing finger. "Your blood is stained with my blood," he says. "Your fortune built on my people's graves." And suddenly I understand what's happening. Why Tommy is here with me today of all days. Why the mountain has finally decided to collect. The shepherd isn't just coming for me. It's coming for both our families. The air gets colder, so cold it hurts to breathe. The 7 lights from my dead crew move closer, forming a circle around Tommy and me. The ghost of Tommy's grandfather watches us with sad, knowing eyes. "What's happening?" Tommy asks, his voice barely a whisper. Before I can answer, the ground beneath us changes. The dirt and leaves disappear, replaced by the concrete floor of the mine. The trees around us transform into support beams. The open sky above becomes a low rock ceiling with electric lights hanging from it. We're in the mine, not just any part of the mine. We're in the exact tunnel where my crew died. "This isn't real," I say, but I can smell the damp rock, the coal dust, the sweat of men working underground. It feels more real than anything I've felt in years. Tommy grips my arm. His fingers dig into my skin. "Look." The 7 figures of my dead crew move closer. In the mine light, I can see their faces clearly now. Bob, Mike, Johnny, Pete, Dave, Luis, and Sam. Men I sent to their deaths. Men whose families I couldn't look in the eye at the funerals. But something's wrong with them. Their bodies are changing, melting together like candle wax. Bones and flesh and mining equipment all twisting into one massive shape. "The shepherd," Tommy whispers. "The thing that forms before us is like nothing I've ever seen. It has 7 heads, all my dead crew, but their bodies have fused into one giant form made of rotting flesh and mining equipment. Copper wiring runs through it like veins. Safety gear I never provided hangs from its massive frame. Ezra Blackthorn," it speaks with 7 voices at once. "Foreman, betrayer, liar. I can't move, can't speak, can't even breathe. You sent us here to die," the voices continue. "For $6,000, that was our price." The creature takes a step forward. Coal dust falls from its body like black tears. "You knew the support beams were rotting," it says. "You knew we were digging into sacred ground. You knew the methane levels were too high." Each accusation hits me like a physical blow because it's all true. "I'm sorry," I whisper, but the words feel empty. The shepherd laughs with 7 mouths. "Sorry doesn't bring back the dead. Sorry doesn't feed our children. Sorry doesn't heal what you broke." Tommy suddenly steps forward, holding up his grandfather's medicine bag. "Leave him alone," he shouts. "This isn't right." The shepherd turns its attention to Tommy. "The grandson defends his enemy. Do you know what his family did to yours?" "I know," Tommy says, his voice shaking but strong. "But this isn't the way." The ghost of Tommy's grandfather moves closer to us. He speaks in Cherokee, but somehow I understand every word. "The boy must learn the full truth," he says. "Show him." Suddenly, my mind is filled with images I've never seen before. My grandfather and other men from the mining company surrounding Tommy's grandfather in the woods. The gunshots, the shallow grave, the land being marked for mining the very next day. I fall to my knees, overwhelmed by the horror of it. But then something even stranger happens. Tommy begins to change. His young face shifts, growing older, looking more and more like his grandfather. "What's happening to me?" he cries out, his voice deepening, taking on the accent of his grandfather. "The shepherd feeds on guilt and pain," the ghost explains. "It's showing you what happened through my eyes, making you feel what I felt." Tommy, or the thing Tommy is becoming, turns to me with eyes full of betrayal and pain. "You knew," he says in a voice that's not his own. Your whole family knew what happened to me, and you still came here to dig up our sacred grounds." "I didn't know," I tried to explain. "Not until after the cave-in. Not until I found my grandfather's journals. But it doesn't matter. The shepherd is growing stronger, feeding on our pain and guilt. The mine tunnel around us starts to crumble. Rocks fall from the ceiling. The support beams crack, just like they did the day of the cave-in. It's recreating what happened, I realize out loud. It's going to bury us like my crew was buried." Tommy clutches his chest suddenly, falling to his knees. His face keeps shifting between his own and his grandfather's. "My heart," he gasps. "It hurts." I crawl to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Tommy, stay with me." The ghost of his grandfather watches sadly. The boy cannot bear the weight of my death. The truth is killing him. I look up at the shepherd, its 7 faces watching us with hungry eyes. "What do you want?" I scream at it. "What will stop this? Justice." All 7 voices answer at once. Someone must pay the debt. Someone must carry the burden. And finally, I understand what I have to do. Tommy's breathing gets worse. His face keeps changing between young and old, like he can't decide which person to be. The weight of his grandfather's memories is too much for his young heart. "He's dying," I say, holding him. "Please stop this. He's innocent." The shepherd moves closer, its massive form blocking what little light remains in the tunnel. "No, one is innocent," it says with 7 voices. "His blood is tied to yours now. Generations of betrayal must be paid for." I look at Tommy's face, at the ghost of his grandfather, at the twisted remains of my crew, all these deaths, all this pain. And it all leads back to the same thing. Greed, my family's greed. "Take me," I say, standing up. "Leave the boy alone. Take me instead." The shepherd pauses, its 7 heads tilting like it's considering my offer. "You would take his place?" it asks. "I'll take all their places," I say. "My grandfather's sin, my sin. All of it." I walk toward the creature, leaving Tommy on the ground. Each step feels like walking through deep mud, but I keep going. "I'm the one who ordered my crew to dig here," I say. "I'm the one who ignored the warnings about the sacred burial ground. I'm the one who falsified the safety reports." With each confession, the tunnel gets darker, colder. The only light comes from the creature itself now, a sickly glow from its 7 mining helmets. "My family got rich off Cherokee land," I continue. "My grandfather helped murder Tommy's grandfather, and I knew deep down something wasn't right, but I kept digging anyway." I stand right in front of the shepherd now, close enough to smell the rot coming off it, close enough to see the faces of my dead friends twisted in pain. "I accept the guilt," I say. "All of it, every death, every betrayal. I'll carry it all." The shepherd reaches out with hands made of flesh and metal and bone. As they touch me, I feel a cold like nothing I've ever felt before seep into my skin. "The debt must be paid," it says. "The mountain must have justice." Behind me, Tommy gasps loudly. I turn to see him collapsing fully to the ground, his body shaking. "No!" I cry out, but I'm too late. Tommy's eyes close. His chest stops moving. The weight of his grandfather's murder, seen through the murderer's eyes, was too much for his young heart. "You promised to spare him," I scream at the shepherd. "We made no such promise," it replies coldly. "His death was always part of the balance, his life for his grandfather's." Rage fills me like a fire, not at the creature, but at myself, at what my family has done, at what I've done. "Then take me too," I say. "But don't let it end like this. Don't let more innocent people die because of what we did." The ghost of Tommy's grandfather steps forward. He places his hand on his grandson's body, and a soft light passes between them. "The boy's spirit can still be saved," he says, "if you truly accept the burden." "I do," I say without hesitation. "Whatever it takes." The shepherd's body begins to change again. It reaches for me with all 7 sets of arms. As they touch me, I feel myself being pulled into the creature. Not my body, but something deeper. My soul, maybe. You will become the new shepherd, the 7 voices say together. You will guard this mountain. You will keep others from disturbing the dead. You will carry the weight of every betrayal, every death, every broken promise. I accept, I say. The last thing I see before darkness takes me is Tommy's chest rising again. A shallow breath, but a breath nonetheless. The ghost of his grandfather picks him up like he weighs nothing. He will not remember this day, the ghost says to me, but the mountain will remember your sacrifice. Then everything goes black. I don't know how much time passes, days, weeks, maybe years. When I become aware again, I'm standing at the edge of the forest, looking down at the sealed mine entrance. But I'm not the same. My body isn't quite solid anymore. I can feel the mountain under my feet like it's part of me. I can feel every grave in the Cherokee burial ground, every tunnel in the abandoned mine. In the distance, I see hikers approaching the trail that leads to the old mining road. Without thinking, I move toward them. My voice, when I speak, sounds like wind through the trees. This path is closed, I tell them. The mountain is not safe. They look at me with frightened eyes and turn back. They don't argue. Something in my face, in my voice, warns them away. This is my punishment, my atonement, to walk these mountains forever, keeping others safe from the darkness beneath, shepherding the living away from the places of the dead. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I see Tommy in the distance. He's grown now, a park ranger himself. He doesn't recognize me, but he respects the mountain. He tells visitors the old Cherokee stories about the sacred burial grounds, about the price of greed, about the spirit that guards the mountain. He calls it the shepherd, and I answer to that name now.